Greetings, everybody. Welcome to Armor of Truth Live, number 343. Anti-justice. What in the world does that mean? Well, if you're looking around at the Southeast right now, you're seeing it happen in real time, as they say. Anti-justice. Distributive justice. Some call it anti-racism. We'll talk more about this in just a minute. I'll put it to you this way. In a free society and free markets, the human rights of individuals are acknowledged, respected, and secured. The human rights of all people. Every person has an equal opportunity to achieve. We're talking about equal opportunity. There's no guarantee of your outcome. That's up to you. Everyone's personally responsible for his own prosperity. In a collectivist society, rights are understood in terms of the community and how that could be defined in many ways. Individual rights and opportunities are balanced. That means they're limited or restricted against some measure of equity. Or, for example, income, healthcare, education, employment, housing, transportation, food, water, climate, justice, etc., etc. So to achieve this equity, this arbitrary idea of equity, certain individuals must receive preferential treatment while others, see, it's not just that some people have to be given preferential treatment. The real key to anti-justice, to anti-racism, to distributive justice, the real key to what you're seeing happen right now in the mountains of North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, throughout this region. The government response, or lack thereof, is that one particular group that's been singled out as privileged must be discriminated against until that state of equity is achieved. So, anti-racism, distributive justice, what we're calling now, we're just playing with the term now, anti-justice, it's just discrimination. It's active discrimination. It is racism. It is not equality. In their ideal expressions, the individual has an equal opportunity to prosper in a free society and in free markets, and justice is blind. That means it's applied equally. In a communitarian society, there is no equality. There are only subjective measures of social equity. This is why concepts like justice are qualified as social justice. You see, the word justice needs no qualifier. When someone puts some qualifying word before the term justice, they got something up their sleeve. So the measure of equity is also used as a pretext for circumventing constitutional rights, the rule of law, and things like due process, for the purpose of directly discriminating against a particular community or group. Tactics include influencing law through paid activism, lobbying, coercion, shaming of all dissent, all of which, under anti-justice or distributive justice, are justified by the concept of achieving this arbitrary measure of equity. No one's ever going to tell you when we arrive at this imaginary place of equity, because this is not just about equity. This is about a complete takeover. Therefore, the revolution is perpetual. In short, now, to achieve equity, one group within society must be discriminated against. Hannah Arendt wrote about this. She wrote that totalitarianism is a process that includes isolating and atomizing people, because the early goal is to create this sense of loneliness in the people, to create a sense of angst that the state will eventually come in and solve. So the fact that you don't see the government reacting as you would think that they normally would in the condition of a natural disaster like this. That's because the people who have the levers of control of the federal government right now, they have a plan. And part of that plan is to create the conditions for revolution. Create a sense of loneliness. Lead to angst. Because they do have a solution eventually. And the people in power right now, ultimately, their solution is communism. Let's don't get it twisted. Think lockdowns, economic collapse, loss of livelihood, loss of routine and structure, loss of purpose. All of this creates a sense of loneliness and anxiety in people. Totalitarian ideology creates a rallying point for these lonely people by identifying a certain group or perhaps a certain class within society to be the scapegoat on which to lay the blame. And then so this is the group that becomes the common enemy of peace and safety, the common enemy of the earth and the climate. Throughout history, we see occasions where certain people groups have been used as scapegoats, as rallying points. During the French Revolution, the aristocracy was identified as that common enemy of flourishing. Every time this happens, though, the culmination is mass murder and a collapse of peace and safety in the name of solving the problem of inequality. Likewise, the idea of the nation state was seen as the tool of the oppressor class, and the idea of the global order was posited as the answer to oppression. The obvious danger here is that the emergence is the emergence of a personality that would gain popularity because he or she represents the voice of the people, the will of the people, the person who comes along and promises to restore that balance of power. And today in the West, we're seeing this pattern and this tactic play out in real time as one particular group within Western civilization has been singled out, identified, and demonized in very much the same way as we've seen other groups in history. What is the social problem and who is the group that they have identified? Well, you can see it very clearly now, can't you? They've identified the problem as an immoral inequality that must be addressed directly through discrimination, through anti-justice. Today it's common to hear from the spokesman of the left. I mean, I'm kind of tired of calling them the left. They're the communists. They're the Marxists, you know. Or the woke movement, repeated by those who have been mesmerized by the message of the oppressor and the oppressed, that theirs is a righteous movement for equality and to raise vulnerable groups, perhaps migrants, would work, who the immoral common enemy has left behind. Their openly stated goal is simply to foster a society of equal opportunity for all, to raise those who've been left behind, and to protect the earth, of course, from the effects of that common enemy. This all has the hallmarks of a totalitarian movement organized from within our society, or from within the United Nations world mind, as Robert Mueller referred to it. The WHO, the WEF, many other Geneva-based international organizations, they advocate for social, financial, and environmental policies within this ideology of solidarity, designed to take down the common enemy. This ideology is then spread regionally by NGOs, agencies, and activists, where it is implemented locally and ultimately enforced by national, state, and local governments. Again, we want to point out to you, everyone who's telling you that the United Nations is a threat to sovereignty, they're correct. But the first threat to the sovereignty of Americans, the sovereignty of the nation, is Americans. But who is the common enemy they've identified? Do we even need to say it out loud? Well, the common enemy is white Christian white Christian capitalists, I guess. Americans. It's just Americans. Americans have become, when I say white, I don't mean to exclude any people of color, because if you're a person of color and you have achieved something of yourself in this nation, you've taken the responsibility on your own. Or not even that, maybe you have had a hard time and you've benefited from the programs that are made available to people in the United States. You're still the common enemy as long as you don't agree with their movement to this totalitarian system. Americans have become the rallying point, the root cause of global suffering. So, the structures and institutions of American freedom and prosperity must be torn down. We can see this. You see it through the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. You see it through these specific policies and movements for change within America. You see it right now in the lack of response from the federal government to hurricane relief in the southeast, particularly the Appalachian Mountains. At the heart of the attack is the push to subvert individual responsibility and replace it with collectivism, dismantling free market capitalism and replacing it with some other kind of economy, perhaps a command economy. But the foundation of 20th century communism, we've brought this up to you before, we won't get into it today, but there is a communism 3.0, a communism for the 21st century. But that's just a far-right conspiracy theory. What's the evidence? If it's still unclear, just check out our channel. Check out Armor of Truth Live for the past several months, so we can explain to you where the most immediate threat to your way of life and liberties comes from. Because the call is coming from inside the house. Okay? Summer, welcome to the show.
Hello, everyone.
Let's see. I've got
It's good to be back.
Where's the sum cam? There she is. Yeah, I've lost track of We've been away for a while, folks, and as you might have noticed, there's been a little distraction in our part of the world for a while, and we were without power for I don't know how long, a week, something like that.
6 days. 6 days, no power, and Verizon was down as well.
Yeah, but we're not complaining because we had it very easy compared to many folks around us, lots of folks that we know. A lot of things going on for us around personally right now. Just for transparency, my father at the moment is at home now under hospice care, so we have this going on daily as well. So I just, we want to mention that to you because you haven't seen much of us here lately. And just want to let you know what's going on here, not as a matter of sympathy, but just so you know that if you don't see us here as much, or you haven't over the past week because the power and, a hurricane that came through the area. So if you would, keep us in your prayers for that, and also all the people who are truly suffering out here today. Now, let's jump right into this. Summer, I'm going to play. By the way, let's just show you here. Right here's Ryan Hall, y'all. He's covering the hurricane right now. That's threatening to make landfall now on the. Has it made landfall?
I actually don't know if it's made landfall.
Yeah, these are just. Let's listen to Ryan Hall for 1 second.
Some damage, and out of respect for the people who have
still
lost
got those
today
speakers in the wrong place.
Be hurting. We don't want to broadcast that on the air. We will get an update from them though, and let you guys know what's going on out there.
Oh, there it is.
In these places that just
bear with me. I'll get this. I'll get this right.
That is still ongoing. I want to make sure everybody knows that. I feel like we're probably all having some alert fatigue right now.
That's true.
Ryan Hall is very popular.
Sorry, I'll get that. There he goes.
And, we really need to make sure that everybody is aware of that and taking it seriously, especially up here in the Vera.
Really strange. I'm having a hard time with my audio here on this side, but I can, on the other browser, it'll come through just fine, so I'll use that. Anyway, yeah, Hurricane Milton bearing down on South Florida right now, Tampa Bay, Clearwater area. If you ever need to know what's going on with severe weather in your area, we would recommend that you find Ryan Hall on YouTube. That's our go-to. And he's going to be better than.
People in the chat are saying the eye has not gotten to land, but tornado warnings are abundant.
All right.
So thanks for that, guys.
Thanks for that. Okay.
Tammy Hall.
Thanks for that, Tammy. Thanks for everyone who's been sending us messages, and thank you for all of your support. Yesterday we put out a video of just how you can support people who have been impacted by the hurricane in our region.
Yeah, that video is really great, and we were able to connect with actual people here in the area that are just boots on the ground, like private people that are caring about what's going on, and then trying to serve the community and drive supplies in and stuff. And so if you haven't watched that video yet, please do. It's only 15 minutes, and we tried to make it short enough to where you can share it, and then also to vet those sources for you.
Years would
feel
imagine.
confident that donations would be well spent there.
Yeah. In fact, we'll go ahead and play the last couple minutes of that video for you now, so you can see the business end of that video. Operation Airdrop, number 1, and number 2, in no particular order, is Winkler's Grove Baptist Church. Look, it's hard, right? We're telling you, FEMA, you just can't trust it. The Red Cross, I know, the Red Cross has historically have been very important in these matters. And I'm not saying you shouldn't support those people. What we are telling you is that we went and personally vetted at least these 2 sources, and we're still trying to bring in more. If you have examples of people who are distributing relief directly to people, if you have examples of that, please email us at hello@armoroftruth.net. Help us to sort of crowdsource this, because one of the great things, one of the best things that we see coming out of all of this destruction and this tragedy right now, and we're going to talk about lithium mines, we're going to be talking about all that later too, weather modification, we'll get to that stuff, but you can see what an American looks like. It's certainly not what Harris and those people identify as Americans, right? They hate America, and they hate Americans. In fact, they want to fundamentally change what it means to be American. But you can see real Americans responding right now in the area. And here's a little example of what that looks like. Sorry, hang on, I did it wrong. There we go. So, bear with me, folks. It's been a minute.
Those are tail numbers. On construction end, it's a tail numbers. Those are aircraft right there. So these aircraft are going on out. When they send aircraft, they'll put them right there.
A remarkable operation underway. It's just been immense.
And we are here, yes, at the Hickory Regional Airport. And really, this is such an incredible feat to watch, really, because we're watching community members seeing a crisis, seeing a need out there, and they are running towards it.
Help is on the way.
We just kind of organized a private helicopter army to go in and survey the damage and extract people and take supplies in and just create landing zones for everybody to have supply routes in and out.
All right, let's say a prayer and knock this out, boys. Dear Father, Lord, we absolutely thank you for another day that you've given us. the weather to be able to go collect people and drop off supplies. We thank you for the ability that you've given us to be pilots, to go do these missions. Lord, we just ask that you give us safety, that you give us clarity, that you give us direction to get to the right places. Lord, we just thank you again for the day you've given us. We thank you for the lives that you're letting us save. We ask that you be with us. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Matt McSwain is a pilot from Mount Holly and says he received a call from Operation Airdrop, an organization now working to shore up relief and rescue efforts for folks trapped in North Carolina's high country.
We've had 37 helicopters today, volunteers. We've had people from Texas to Maine, all the way across the East Coast, just show up and like, how do we help?
McSwain took us back to the war room where we were allowed to take photos but not share any audio from inside. There's a station where they gather calls for help, often from social media posts, then triage the severity of the need and what supplies should go on the flight, and then attempt to find that person in distress. One of the biggest hurdles, McSwain says, is not having spots to land.
When we go to those GPS coordinates, we may not be able to land there. It might be a mile, 2 miles on one side or the other just because we can't get to that distress call.
Tuesday, he says they plan to help with another major concern, shuttling in communication devices for first responders.
There's actual whole communities that are completely cut off from the grid. We tried to establish communications with the local sheriff's department, the fire department. There is no communications.
And so, yeah, they were talking about bringing in these Starlink communication devices, which they say they received a donation of a bunch of these. So this will really help. As far as what the community can do to help, we will let you know Operation Airdrop has started to raise some money for fuel costs. We're told just here with this operation, $60,000 a day being spent on fuel. Donations definitely still needed. The supplies are still needed.
People are coming together to bring supplies into hard-hit areas of western North Carolina. They're banding together to rescue one another.
For folks who remember Katrina, there's like the Cajun Navy.
Right.
I feel very much like this is Cajun Navy.
Yeah, this is Redneck Navy.
Update us on what you're doing here so that people know where they can help people directly.
Yes. So our church is Winklers Grove Baptist Church, and Sunday our people got a burden to help the people of the hurricane victims. And what we have done, we have turned our campus here into a collection hub, if you will, to collect items that are needed. We've been in touch with the folks in the mountains in Asheville and probably 12 different townships in Asheville, also Newland, Pinola, and now we are expanding out into Banner Elk. We've taken tractor trailers, 20-foot trailers. We've had helicopters to land and take loads of things for us up there, anything from baby items to needs of first responders, swift water rescue people, police, firefighters. These are the people who are on the front lines that are able to get down into the communities, into the hollers, into the hills. We have all kinds of rescue stories. Unfortunately, we have tragic stories, but we have a lot of great victory stories. And as thus far, since Sunday, we've probably done close to $500,000 in supplies that have gone up to these people. We took a bunch of fresh eggs yesterday and milk to one place. They were airlifted out to a whole community that's been cut off for 7 days. And these people are going to get a meal for the first time in 7 days. We get a little emotional about it because it's all about helping people. This isn't about politics. It's not about right, left. It's not about anything except helping people. And that's what it's all about. So my wife is the coordinator for the grounds here.
My name's Kim Deal. I'm the pastor's wife. And we have a list. You can go to Winklers Grove Baptist Church. We have a push pay. The lists are on our website. And also we do it on Facebook. Follow us on Facebook at Winklers Grove Baptist Church in Hickory, North Carolina. And we got it broken down to we have a hot list item every day. Coats, blankets, bath towels that we need. We're looking for a tow motor. You can call us. Our phone number is 828-324-7267 at the church. Back your name and number and your information. And we're so thankful for everyone that's helped us. We even have people that's not even a part of our church that are volunteering here every day. And we're even giving meals to people. We're feeding breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So thank you so much.
We have volunteers inside working together. It's just a community of people different churches, different volunteers, just people in the community coming together, hand in hand, delivering these items, and we will update this list. I will be doing a Facebook Live on the church's Facebook page. So if you want to see what's going on inside, if you want to get an idea of how this works, I post a Facebook Live usually daily just to show you what we have coming in, what we have going out, and just keep in touch and stay tuned.
Okay, we'll stop it right there because just to let you know why we chose to do it this way. That is because you want to, when you want to help these people, like the Bible says that we share in suffering with those around us and you do it as a good soldier of Jesus Christ, because we don't get involved in civilian pursuits because our goal is to aim the one who's enlisted us. So all of our efforts should be toward pleasing the Lord in what we do. And the reason we chose to do it this way is because you really want to be able to, you want to help, or when you're donating, you want to make sure someone who's a nonprofit, and the churches are well, still for the moment, nonprofits in America. And many people say, well, you shouldn't be a nonprofit because you're in league with the government. Well, it's looking more and more like one of these days it might turn into that where this nonprofit status that was something that was given as a benefit might turn into a liability for us. We might have to back out of those things. But for now, you want to find people who are legitimate, people who are responsible. And we found a couple here in Operation Airdrop, and particularly Winkler's Grove Baptist Church, who their church is right beside the airport. They do some things in conjunction with one another. It's just a good way, those two. And
they're using it as a collection point.
Yeah.
For people to drop supplies in their parking lot.
Yeah. So for those of you who are not near us, if you can help them out financially in some way, that will also help them with their fuel costs and whatever else that it's food, it's supplies. And not only that, when you help out a church like this, you're sending people into the region who are carrying the gospel, who are carrying the good news, who know how to minister to the hearts who are there as well. Okay, now let's jump back over here. Now, this is a link that Summer found for us recently.
Yeah, this video is really good. He lays it out quite well, so we recommend looking this one up for yourself on Twitter and maybe sharing it with some people, because it helps to articulate how this whole equity thing is working in the face of disaster.
Yeah. Okay. So listen to this. This is again we're talking about distributive justice. Let me explain it one more time. We've done this quite a bit, but just so everyone's sure, you might hear the term anti-racist, right? And people might bring that up to you and say, well, you would think about that term for a minute and go, sure, I'm not racist. Racism is a sin. So yeah, I'm anti-sin. I'm against that. That's not what it means in the Marxist playbook. And the only people using the term anti-racist are Marxists today. And what that specifically means is what I described at the top of the show. It means discrimination. It means that there's one group of people who must be discriminated against. So their movement is fundamentally sinful from the start. So you're not going to see any good outcome from that. So if you're a Christian, you're involved in a church who's taken on the mantle of social justice and anti-racism, understand that you're operating in sin as you do that, because you're disobeying the Lord. You're favoring one over the other. And the Lord is no respecter of persons, rich or poor. Right? Let's listen to this, though. This is a good find by Summer.
The death toll from Hurricane Helene has reached 190, making it the worst killer since Hurricane Katrina nearly 20 years ago. Floods devastated Asheville and other towns in North Carolina, where the elevation usually keeps people safe. Georgia and Florida also suffered terrible damage. FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, will get Asheville back on its feet, along with all the other places that were wrecked, right? Well, according to FEMA's guidelines, white people are last in line for relief. Take a look at this 144-page handbook, Achieving Equitable Recovery. The very first page says, instilling equity as a foundation of emergency management is goal 1 of the 2022-2026 FEMA strategic plan.
Let me just jump in and say again. Now, when he says whiteness or white, it doesn't really mean white skin. It means privilege. It means you could be a black man or black woman. You could be. It doesn't matter. You're a person of color. If you are privileged in some way,
right?
Do you own a home? Perhaps. Do you have a job? Then you're privileged. Go ahead.
If you're not, woke. If you're not woke.
Right.
And engaged in critical theory.
If you're an American citizen and you don't, and you realize that the left or this woke mob is corrupt, then you're privileged. So that's really what whiteness means. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a bit. So there are certainly racism involved here, but it's coming from the anti-racists. We'll keep going.
Equity means underserved groups come first because they have been systematically denied a full opportunity to participate in aspects of economic, social, and civic life. They are Black, Latino, and Indigenous and Native American persons, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, and other persons of color, members of religious minorities, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer persons, persons with disability, persons who live in rural areas. The only persons not included are Christian, white, heterosexuals, who systematically deny opportunity to everyone else. FEMA explains that the higher the number of isms you face, i.e. racism, sexism, ageism, the higher your risks before, during, and after a disaster. This shows how different isms pile up to an alarming degree. One-legged Muslim African lesbians are first in line for disaster relief. I'm only half joking. FEMA explains that equity means you have to generate a data-informed picture of recovery needs before disaster strikes. That's because inequities that existed prior to a disaster are often exacerbated by the disaster, e.g., disparities caused by racism or poverty. FEMA urges you to go to the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, which has already done some of the work for you. It calculates a social vulnerability index for every American county based on socioeconomic status, household characteristics, housing type, and transport.
That Buncombe, you see there, that's Buncombe County. That's Asheville right in the middle of it.
Access, and of course, race. This is Buncombe County, North Carolina, where flood-stricken Asheville is located. Here's the vulnerability of all counties. Dark is bad, light is good. It is critical for local officials and leaders to advance equity and recovery by leveraging available data to inform the recovery process, says FEMA. The top 2 goals of equitable recovery are to address long-standing recovery issues and to correct any prior underinvestment and pre-existing inequities. As Kamala Harris likes to say,
so there's a big difference between equality and equity. Equality suggests often everybody should get the same thing. Well, that often assumes everybody started out in the same place, as opposed to equity, which is everyone should end up in the same place.
Right, and how do you possibly ensure that everyone ends up in the same place unless you determine?
That's the game.
And how does this work out, right? Oh, well, then eventually everyone's just going to be in utopia together. No, everyone's going to be dirt poor and starving together because that's equity. That's equal. As long as we're all equally poor, that would be the goal. All right, so we'll hold that one. Then we might come back to that and listen to the rest of that a little bit later. It's 9 minutes long. It's a little long to play in a live show, but We can share that link, right, Sam? We'll try to.
Yeah, we can put it under the
Okay.
video after the show.
All right. Blue Collar Man on Twitter. This is where we found that one. Okay, we'll jump ahead here. I found this was a Charlotte Observer county by county look at Helene's devastation. I just wanted to, give you some of the reports on, how, what are they reporting? There's nothing really out in Winston-Salem, up in that part of the state, but there's Asheville right there. And as of now, in Asheville, they're saying 72 deaths reported. 72 deaths reported. Haywood County, 4 deaths reported. 10 deaths in Yancey County. 4 deaths in Madison County. 7 in Henderson County. 1 in Polk. 2 in Rutherford.
This might just be more of a reflection on how slow they are to do anything.
Yeah, because I'm going to play a clip.
That's thinking highly of them.
Yes,
That's thinking the best.
Exactly, because I want to play a couple clips for you now. Now, there's been some talk. I'll jump into this right quick since we're here, because I want to play a clip from a lady who's there who's going to tell you kind of the truth about the deaths. But I wanted to share this with you too, because we've Greg Reese put out a video recently where the speculation was that there's no response to this area because it's the land they want. So they want the people off the land. So there's no incentive for them to really help the people out. In fact, this really works in their to their benefit is what anyways what they're saying. So let me get my F11 here. There we go. So this is a map. Now, this is not just lithium, but this is precious minerals that would deposits in the United States. And you can see that if you can see my cursor here, right here in this area. Yeah, it is a fact that we live in an area that is very rich in minerals, and that would include lithium. Now,
right,
when Greg Reese reported on this earlier, he was talking about the fact that the weather modification stories that perhaps it was directed to this area for for a particular reason. I don't know, but this area, he's talking about this area here, which was not affected so much by the wind and the water and the floods. Over here is Asheville. Maybe I can get it a little bit. You got something, Sam? Go ahead and
I was just going to say that I was checking out one of the communist New York Times articles, and of course they're going point by point and refuting all of the claims that
the conspiracy theories.
Yeah, they're saying that basically the whole lithium thing is just a conspiracy, and that it's not one of the minerals that's abundant in North Carolina. Basically every single thing that's coming forward on Twitter and such, and what real people who have experienced this disaster are saying, they're just coming forward and saying, oh, that's not true, that's not true, that's not true. Yeah. So just straight up gaslighting. Okay. All of it.
Well, what Greg Reese was reporting in Cherryville would be about right here. That if in fact that is the case, that they're sitting on major lithium deposits, it'd be over here. They weren't so affected. Everyone in this whole area was affected to some degree by this, but the real damage is right here, where the storm came and just sort of banged up against the Appalachian Mountains and just sat there and churned away and dropped water. On the other side of the mountains, not so bad. Not much rain at all. It's a lot of wind. Because these, Mount Mitchell is, a mile high. And so, anyway, let me back out of this. And I've got some more charts here we can look and see. We can fact check the New York Times. It's something I like to make a habit out of doing. All right, so let's just look at lithium deposits. Is it true that there are lithium deposits in the United States? So this one comes out of the Howard Center for Investigative Journalism. It does appear that, let's see, let me open it up in a new screen. It does appear that North Carolina has lithium deposits. Let's take another look here. Large lithium deposits. Most of those are going to be found out west. Typically, I believe, in areas where it's more desert-like. U.S. Geological Survey here for lithium deposits. The U.S. Geological Survey. Okay, so we'll just go to the government's own source. Sorry about this. It's going to be a little grainy, but yeah, right there. So you can see that it's not the most, like not the highest concentration of lithium deposits, but most certainly right there where Greg Reese was reporting around Cherryville area, the Shelby, Cherryville area there, certainly appears to be substantial lithium deposits in that area. Not so much here in the mountains where it was where most of the hurricane damage and flooding damage occurred, but the New York Times has, well, look, we covered here recently. The New York Times is discredited. They're the paper. They're called the paper of record in name only. They have been discredited for sure, right? What video? I can't remember what show it was. It was a couple ago where we showed you how Wikipedia and the New York Times both are not to be trusted.
They've been captured.
Yeah, they're just captured by this movement.
Yeah.
Okay, now speaking of deaths and how they're underreported and all that, let's play a couple clips for you. I'll play a couple clips of Mark Honeycutt, who lives up in the area, going into Chimney Rock, and then I'm going to play the clip of this lady right here. Let's see. She says her name at the beginning of the clip, so I'll save it for then. But this is just a few days ago, and she has very, very sad and shocking information. But just to give you an idea, I want you to. I couldn't find. There was a video where he was walking along, and a car. I don't even know what kind it was. It's hard to tell. Honestly, wadded up like a beer can just from the flood. But let's check out some of that.
I just got back on the road, what's left of the road, and then it'll end up there again and back to the rocks. But I'm closer to Chimney Rock than I was last time. That's the power of water right there. Look at that beam.
Okay, somebody in the chat, just let us know if the audio on this clip, because I've got this browser that was giving me trouble, just let us know if the audio on this clip is okay.
I mean, that's a thick metal beam. Well, that's interesting. Once again, this is where the road should be.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. Tony from Yonkers. Good to see you, bro. Look at that. It's amazing, right? This was just a creek, folks. This was not a raging river. This was just a creek. Jump ahead
This
here.
bridge leading into this nice neighborhood. Get around the raging river, a place that was previously so accessible by car. Look at this. That's crazy. That's huge. Just dropped out of the woods right there. This poor guy washed up here. in Chimney Rock with Logan. He's been clearing the streets with these guys. We don't smell anything, do we?
No. If the smell that was here was more than likely the 50-something propane tanks they took out from the river. Propane's got a pretty bad smell. There's not bodies in the road, no.
Yeah. There's no looting?
No looting. No.
You can't even get in here.
No, if you look around, there's definitely not people getting robbed by guns either.
So the point there is that it depends on where you are as to where looting and bodies may be. More looting, of course, is reported in the city around Asheville right now, and these guys are reporting here that they're not having too much of a problem of the stench of death where they are. But let me just show you what these cars look like. This is amazing.
This is the bridge on Flat Creek Road. Now this is the access.
By the way, check out Mark Honeycutt's channel. He is a paramotor flyer. I think that's right, a pilot, and it's a very interesting channel. And he's done an excellent job. In fact, he was videoing, he was chronicling this the day before the storm came in, where they had already had, how much summer was it? What did our I don't want to use her name, but in Asheville, our partner in Asheville, she said, what was it, 10 inches they had already?
Yeah, it was 10 inches before the storm hit.
Before the storm got there.
Mm-hmm.
Here.
Yeah, there you go. Check out this car.
And people were pulled
Look at
out
that.
of this.
That's a truck, by the way. That's not a car.
In.
There's another one.
Some are still
Car.
missing. I helped someone with a wellness check this morning, and they asked me to help find someone, and she had passed away just about half a mile up the road, and she got washed into this creek, and her husband hasn't been found yet. He's somewhere in this creek.
So this is a matter of people, neighbors, being called into action to search for their neighbors, to recover bodies. And there's going to be a lot of people who are not familiar with this, trained to do this. There's going to be a lot of PTSD, but this is, we're capable. We're capable. We can do this. I mean, we don't need communism. We don't need federal government. Be nice, but we don't need them.
This is the Swannanoa River going towards the Asheville Lows. I haven't been down this way quite yet, but you can see there's tons of mud.
This was a golf course here. It's just nothing but dirt now. It's just gone. And what that means is, the fact that, a golf course generally holds water really well. But they were saturated. It was just completely saturated. And then when the winds and the floods came, it just took the top layer of the soil deep and just moved it. Just moved the whole thing. Whole towns, the town of Chimney Rock, really, you saw there were some buildings left there, but some of the smaller towns, they're just gone. They've been erased off the map. And in that, let me before I get into this lady.
Welcome to this mini-series.
Let me show you just a clip of Honeycutt the day before the storm. Yeah, here it is, major flooding, and this was before the storm, the day before. Yeah, that's an airfield.
Well, you're supposed to be able to fly here, but instead, I am kayaking. Looks like the water is over all the way over the DA-20 up there. And I know Johnson Airfield is a big old swamp. Wow.
So that's the day before
this is an airfield.
The storm had not
this
even.
This is where you start the takeoff.
Yeah.
And down there is where you finish.
Had not even hit yet. Now, let's listen to this. I'll let her introduce herself so we can get her name.
My name is Christy Thrift. I am...
Christy, did you catch that son?
Grip or Rip?
Yeah. He's also got her Facebook right here. Let me open that up so we can... I don't know what I'm doing. Clicking on things. Tab, here we go. Let's see. Yeah, the Facebook page leads to this in North Carolina outdoor activities, and that's her. Yeah, that's her, and that's her. Yeah, I just couldn't catch her name quite there, but she has. So for the news, the Charlotte Observer. I mean, they have to report the information they get, right? They can't speculate on deaths. That when you report things officially, you have to have, there has to be a body, there has to be a certificate, especially in the first 5 to 7 days of this, it was extremely underreported. Just not that big a deal. It's not that bad. It's not, well, let's listen to what she had to say.
Yeah, so my name is Christy Thrift. I am the owner of NC Outdoor Adventures. I live on this road. During the storm, this was completely underwater. This is the railroad tracks, railroad tunnel. It was built in 1916, and we go through the other side. Guess what? It's here after the flood of 1916, and it's here after Helene. But the mud was about up to here. No one could get through here until about 3 days ago. It was all neighborhood folks and neighbors that got us out. We were down here for about 3 days with no other outside help. So we actually cleared the road ourselves. We dug this out ourselves. We got neighbors insulin that needed insulin. We got water to some folks that had been without food.
So it'd be nice to have help, but we're resilient people. Come on. It'd be nice if our federal government used the tax dollars that we gave them for this instead of passing it around to, where was it, Lebanon? Mm-hmm. Sending it, the people in power right now, sending your tax dollars, our tax dollars, to Lebanon because, and as Kamala Harris said,
we're ultimately just building the digital panopticon around us. Yeah. Using the funds to do that.
And funding Ukraine, whatever, folks, you've heard all this.
In water for 36 hours and tried to evacuate those that we could, and several people have decided to stay, but we got a lot of folks out. But getting there was hard. So like when we came down here, I'll show you where the houses floated away. Yeah. And we were.
I believe I've been through several hurricanes at the beach. But I'm kind of one of those who wants to just stay. So I wonder, nobody was expecting anything. At the beach, you kind of know what to expect, but nobody here was prepared for anything like this.
Coming down here, the reason we were coming down here is we actually wanted to see if our neighbor was okay. We didn't know at the time that the houses were floating away because we were below the water line here on this road. Our house is actually 200 yards away from the river, but the river had come up 100 yards closer to our home. So what we could see, all of this was underwater here. This is our tubing put in. If you see over there in the distance, the metal thing, that was a swinging bridge that was over here. And this was my friend Lenny's home. Lenny's still missing.
This home?
The house, the chimney.
I'm sorry to hear that.
We saw his house float away. This was all during the hurricane, y'all. So as soon as the winds were enough where we could safely get out, we came down here.
Would you say that was roughly maybe 12 on Friday?
I think it was like 10, 11 o'clock
10. So
when the wind started to die down. And now, mind you, I think the important thing to say about this storm in western North Carolina is Thursday night, This river is typically, the Toe River is typically 1.5 to 2.5 feet of water. Thursday night, before Hurricane Helene ever got here, this was 9 feet.
Yeah.
Action stage, I'm a swiftwater rescue technician. Action stage for this river is 6 feet. So this was at 9 feet and flooded. This part of this road down below us was already underwater before the hurricane ever got here.
Yeah, we were set up for failure for sure with how
Absolutely.
flooding beforehand.
And so we already had that. And then, of course, like I said, Lenny's house over here, Lenny is unaccounted for. We've been looking, we've done our best. We've contacted everyone we can contact at this point. The day before yesterday, we went from search and rescue, which means I'm searching and rescuing people, to search and recovery. It no longer means I'm searching and rescuing people.
I think I just have to say here that, you know, you feel for this lady because you can see as she's recounting all this, she's not really there. She's operating on, you know, she's telling the story, she's functioning, but, you know, she's seen a lot. She's been through a lot right here, and she's doing a good job to hold it together. But, you know, we're resilient people. We can get along without these resources that they want to try to keep from us. And now's the time when we need to learn and retrain ourselves in how to do it. And so these are the kind of people that we need to take our cues from.
Well, it means I'm searching and recovering bodies. That terminology is extremely important, and social media doesn't want to get that out there. But I think that's unfair to those who've lost people or who have missing. They need to know that we are now in a recovery mission. They need to start preparing that if they're missing or have not contacted them, that they need to start preparing themselves for that outcome.
Right. Yeah.
So that was Lenny's house. These were cinder block homes. All cinder block homes. They were 2 stories. There were 3 of them.
Thanks for that info in the chat there. Let's see, Wendy Randall. Thanks for that info on Christy.
So this house picked up, it floated, it was only above the water for a few seconds. I think what
this
happened,
one right here?
Yeah. I think what happened is the swinging bridge was still, the cables were metal, so I think it might have clipped the...
I'm going to jump ahead just a tad here because this is where it gets, this is where we get the truth.
It was a leaf line. The water, he's the red porch on the front there. The water got a few feet, maybe 2 feet below his porch, but it never hit our go line. But during our climb up the mountain to check on him, after this house was gone, Mr. Garland over there saw the cinder blocks home here. This cinder block home picked up intact. It twisted, it hit this home, it picked up intact, so now you got 2 cinder block homes above water, intact, spinning. And then it hit this one. The neighbor there was on the 2nd floor at that time, and there were waves hitting his feet from the river. We saw him exit the back of the home, or he saw him go into the home, but we didn't see him exit the back. And I think what had happened was we were looking for a pink shirt, and I think he might have put a coat or something on, or just for some reason we didn't see him go up the back, but he did escape. We thought he was dead for the last few days, but he's not.
So he headed off out into the woods, you think, up the hill?
That's the only way out.
And
he had to climb the mountain.
He rode out the winds and the river and everything in the woods.
Absolutely. All of these people on this road here, anybody that is alive on this road, which, by the way, I've heard social media saying like there are 8 dead in Spruce Pine. Maybe they have 8 confirmed bodies, but I have to tell you the truth here, folks. You can smell the bodies in certain places along the river. There were vultures out. They have marked, with they being the National Guard, have marked over 100 bodies in a 6-mile stretch of river. Possible bodies, just where they think they are. You can't see them, guys. The bodies, the smells, the things are either buried in sand or they're up in the trees and they're crushed in sediment.
Yeah, I just saw a chicken right there. You couldn't really tell. Like, you'd smell something, but you saw flies.
Yeah,
so
the National Guard, is there a lot of National Guard helping right here?
There weren't at first. The first 3 to 4 days we were down here by ourselves. We were helping each other. This entire thing got cleared to here by locals, by the local farmer and our neighbors. The evacuations that happened on this road were primarily started by myself and my neighbors and the local farmers on this road. And then the National Guard got here the day before yesterday. I'm so confused on my days because I haven't had internet or Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
But the National Guard did get here, and the National Guard, in collaboration with some fire and rescue folks, were able to help us airlift a 96-year-old couple that had dementia, and they needed to leave. They couldn't stay here. And so we were able to get choppers to them and get them out.
That's good.
But, people are still missing. They have, they are now bringing in body recovery teams. Their goal is to specifically get and retrieve bodies so that they can get them to the medical examiner and check their teeth records. So that process is really hard. And it's going to be really challenging. Like, a gentleman handed me body bags, which I had body bags in my car all day yesterday. And I had to explain to him something that had to be explained to me, even as a rescuer. When I watched the National Guard and they confirmed that the smells I had been smelling were most likely bodies, I was like, well, where are they so I can get to them? You can't get to them. They're crushed in debris. They're up in trees. They're under sediment. They're under sand. Unfortunately, it will be a very long time before you find all these people that are missing. And I haven't even had internet, so I don't even know what the number is. And they don't have a number here yet because we're still getting communication.
It's amazing. Yeah, and this is not the first time we've heard this, as we've watched different YouTubers who are just living in the community who happen to be like right there and survived, and they have a YouTube channel or whatever. It's the same story over and over again, how people are saying it's hundreds of bodies. Hundreds of bodies. Not 100 bodies. Not 144 bodies.
Again, you can forgive the news for underreporting the death toll because they have to have, because as you heard, there's just no way to know. But what you're not hearing in national news and all that is this. You're not getting this. You're not getting the fact that there are people who are never going to be accounted for. Because the flooding, this natural catastrophe was so severe. I mean, if it can wad up a truck, a 4x4, like a beer can, then it's just, the bodies are just being pulverized, And I think, there is in our video where we're telling you to donate, where you can donate to, I wanted to share this poor girl in Chimney Rock who, I'll just play the beginning of this because her experience, you can hear it in her voice. It's just, it's a harrowing, man. These are stories that need to be told because the media is not really gonna, the national. Just listen to this person, realizing what the situation is. This first clip is from this is from where we live, and of the morning of the storm. And I really didn't think anything. I just didn't think anything was going to be that bad. I figured just blow through like tropical storms do, and be a little bit of flooding and get on with their business. But and we were very fortunate here. But that's what this opening clip is. But then it very quickly goes to this girl who just moved from Florida to Chimney Rock and her experience there as she's seeing everything change.
In Caldwell counties, this is a particularly dangerous situation. Seek higher ground now. This is a particularly dangerous situation.
We are stranded here.
Life-threatening flash flooding.
We're stranded here. Nobody else is home. We're the last ones on the street.
Hazard. Life-threatening flash flooding. Catastrophic.
Oh my God!
And an additional swath of heavy rainfall will result in imminent catastrophic flooding in the warned area.
The inside of their house.
That was a creek. So there's that. That one came from TikTok. You are this is an artist. She's an artist. I guess her name's Miranda. You are Moss House, so you can check that out. And the good news is that they did make it. They did make it out okay. So it's just been an emotional ride for many reasons. But this, especially all of this, and then the personal stuff going on here. This is a really strange time. Summer is sharing with you now some imagery from weathermodificationhistory.com. This is Jim Lee from, he's from South Carolina.
He's got it linked to his website.
Okay, we'll link to it. Well, this is
this is his website right here.
This is the guy we trust when we want to know the truth about weather modification, geoengineering, chemtrails, whatever, whether or not the next rad radar systems can move weather around or do this or that. This is...
well, it's an old topic, as you can see here. I mean, producing rain in 1891. It's a really interesting website because, weathermodificationhistory.com, and it's just got this archive of different newspaper clippings throughout, the last more than 100 years, 1950, 1960, 1800 to 1949. And you can just go through here and read these little clips and what they're saying about weather modification. Pretty interesting stuff. We've also got a lot of people are talking about this one right here, the 70th anniversary of the first hurricane seeding experiment.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of information out there about the fact that they can do things to alter the weather.
Yeah, and you just have to be... Just to treat it fairly, it's every story about seeding clouds, and it's not nefarious. It's not there were farmers would try to, just trying to get water into certain areas to grow crops. There are many reasons for doing cloud seeding, but what we're talking about, what most people are talking about today is being able to maybe strengthen storms that already exist, or being able to steer them and guide them. And this is something that's pretty well known.
Check it out. Producing rain with X-rays in 1919.
Yeah.
So, whether it's true or not, whether these articles were true or not, it's certainly been in the mind of people, the minds of men, if you will. For quite a long time.
Yeah, it's just the history of weather modification. It's it's not a conspiracy theory. It's just a thing that's real. But also, does anybody remember the hurricane from 9/11? A lot of people have just totally forgotten about the 9/11 hurricane. Let's see what this link is.
One funny thing.
Yeah, this is Truth Stream Media's got one about it too. Let's let their video about it play, and there's some other clips. I won't spend too much time on this. So just to show that sometimes they come inland when they shouldn't. Sometimes they stay out in the sea when they shouldn't. Sometimes they defy logic.
I think of if only a hurricane had come on 9/11. Remember, they didn't know how to use instruments, the terrorists. They took off in Boston, and they literally, after they took over the aircraft, they steered by line of sight. And it was that crystal clear September day.
Sure was. Beautiful.
And if it were only one of these weather days, history would have been rewritten.
In a quick follow-up to Aaron's video on weather modification, I just want to add something that our friend Mark James Levesque brought to my attention. I know it's been reported on before, and I may have even heard the claim, but I never actually went and looked into it myself. On the morning of 9/11, a rather large hurricane, Hurricane Aaron, was sitting off the coast of New York City. In the days leading up to 9/11, Aaron was on track and had been on track for a while to possibly hit New York. It had been a Category 3 the night before, on September 10th, when a sudden cold front moved in that dropped the temperature 10 degrees, and Aaron began to weaken And that morning, that hurricane made a nearly 180-degree turn and went away.
Now, that wouldn't be that big of that by itself. That's not that crazy of a story. But when you're aware of the over 20 different military exercises that were being run on that morning, military exercises that had all of the, oh, not all, but almost all of the jets that would normally be available on the East Coast to scramble in case of any kind of, invasion or odd, aircraft or whatever, were all away, far off, as far away as Alaska, engaged in war games on that day. There's just a lot of things about that are weird.
That's not the most bizarre thing, I don't even think. The most bizarre thing is watching the weather reports earlier that morning that occurred before the World Trade Center attacks.
And you might want to grab a sweater as you head out the door. It's chilly outside.
Heat on in the car as you walked out. Really one of the chilliest mornings we've had in quite a while, and it is 10 to 15 degrees cooler this morning than where you were and when you woke up and walked out the door yesterday.
And you'll see that we've got clear skies throughout much of the country, some showers in the northern plains, and wet weather down in Florida, where they'll be picking up as much as 7 inches of rain in parts of central and southern Florida. Partly cloudy skies in the Pacific Northwest. The heat continues in the desert Southwest. 106 in Phoenix. That's what's going on around the country.
Here's the satellite radar picture showing the rain that moved offshore thanks to the cold front. And that cold front, that's a true cold front. This day is going to be beautiful.
No problems except down in Florida, a little rain. Northeast, we'll see little rough seas along the New England coastline from that hurricane that's going away. Miles and miles of sunshine.
It is beautiful outside. Perfect September day with lots of sunshine. Oh, would you look at Washington, huh? I'm going outside today.
All is clear and all is fine with the world weather-wise.
Now notice how they first reported on Erin before it became a hurricane at all, when it was just newly forming out in the ocean off the African coast.
What you see there is a big red blob which has come off the African coast and is starting to move out into the Atlantic. Clear here in the Atlantic, one major exception to talk about, and that is this wave. This one, I can tell you, has held together as far as the thunderstorm action with it, or what we call convection, better than any other tropical wave that we have seen so far this season.
If we were to just take this part of the tropics, not including the part that I'm staying in front of, we really don't have much to talk about until I move.
Not even a hurricane, and that's how excited they are about it. And here's what coverage of a hurricane normally looks like when it's off the eastern coast of the U.S.
I'll give you the latest statistics on this very impressive storm as we zero in on Gloria. This is the latest satellite photo, and you can see the top winds now are 135 miles per hour. There are the coordinate positions. The gusts go to 170. The storm is about 500 miles to the south and east of Cape Hatteras, North Carolina.
And that storm can take almost any track at this point.
And again, here's what magical weather fairies look like.
From that hurricane that's going away.
And oh, by the way, Erin just so happened to be part of a weather experiment being run by NASA and NOAA between August 16th and September 24th, 2001, wherein they dropped multiple different instrument packages and assortments of sondes into the eye of the storm, part of which occurred the day before, on September 10th, right before the hurricane weakened and switched directions almost completely.
Let's hope that this isn't one we're going to be dealing with, say, about 8 to 10 days from now, because if it is, and it makes it all the way across, there's going to be some problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Brad and I, we were talking about the fact that the direction that the storm took in general was very abnormal. That wasn't a natural thing for it to be doing, the trajectory of it.
Helene was a strange trajectory where it comes up from the Gulf and bears westerly. It goes to the west. Typically, the jet stream pulls these things up to the east, to the north, and to the east. But hurricanes are part of they're part of our environment. That generally, what hurricanes do is they bring warm, moist air from the equator or from further south, and bring it north. It's part of the world's weather systems. They're not unusual. This size of this one was unusual, but you're going to be hearing so much, and eventually it's all anyone's going to talk about is, that this was caused by climate change, and Well, anybody who says that can't give you any evidence to support that claim. So that's just another one of those political footballs they throw around. And we probably won't be able to get into it today, but I think we should get into it pretty soon. More information about how this is just, the climate change. Again, Earth Day. The first Earth Day, April 22nd, 1970. Is it any coincidence that Earth Day is on Vladimir Lenin's birthday? I mean, come on. Man. And that Vladimir Lenin was established one of the first Green New Deals, one of the first green governments.
Again, they've got to have that noble lie, so they need to look like they're concerned about the planet. We've got to conserve the planet for future generations. It's the perfect lie.
The Soviet Union, it was done in the Soviet Union where they did what they call land reform. They took over the farmers' lands because now they're going to produce all the food for the people, and it's going to be utopia. Of course, everyone's starved. Not everyone, a lot of people. And then in China, we've covered this for you too. Same thing. Land reforms where they take over the farms and they're going to produce all the food for the people, and the government's not good at producing food. The government shouldn't be trying to produce food. This is the problem with socialism. Anyway. So, and what we're talking about here, let me play this little clip from Lisa Logan. We've played this here before, but this is what we mean when we're talking about the fact that equity is the point, right? Discriminating against the people in our region is the point right now. And here's just a little more information about that.
The Federal Plan for Equitable Long-Term Recovery and Resilience, also called ELTRR or the Federal Plan, is supposedly infusing federal funding into communities hit hard by the pandemic to make them more resilient against future disasters. Under this pretext, radical policy changes will be expected in these local economies to foster what they call resilience, changes not just in health, but in education, housing, employment, transportation, food, water, justice, climate, etc. The recommendations instituted through the federal plan will affect what children will be taught in school, because it'll teach them to think like a communist, how communities are planned and budgeted, giving preferential treatment based on skin color, how much water can be used and what kind of food can be purchased, decided by equity and sustainability, and more. Measuring resilience will require collecting invasive amounts of data on children, adults, businesses, and other entities, which will be gathered and evaluated, tracked through indices like these, and then scored and judged based upon whether or not their behavior is contributing to the resilience or health of their communities. Social credit system ahoy! Essentially, the federal plan and its vital conditions framework are being used as a backdoor way of implementing the totalitarian targets of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. It will transform America's capitalist economy to what's deceptively termed a well-being economy, where growth isn't measured anymore by gross domestic product or GDP, but by very subjective indicators of well-being and health that will need government intervention and constant monitoring to ensure everyone has equal outcomes in resilience. This is communism, folks, and this is where you come in. Please retweet this tweet thread, tag your representatives in Congress that you can find at this link, as well as the judiciary committees, and call on them to do a full investigation into the federal plan, the interagency work group behind it, and their partners in the private sector.
All right, yes, that's Lisa Logan on Twitter. Go ahead, Sam.
I was just going to say, I think we saw some of the cracks, or that we're starting to see some of the cracks of this system upon us. Or here's one example. During the storm, Verizon was really, really bad. And I have Verizon, and I basically...
Not anymore.
Not anymore, but it's been a journey. I don't know if any of you have had this experience. Please let us know. Send us an email at hello@armoroftruth.net or drop a comment. But basically what happened is Verizon was not working. I wasn't able to basically send text messages or get phone calls out. It was just intermittently. And I went into AT&T to try to port my number over, and we got all the way to the last stage of making that happen. And then they asked me 4 different security questions to do the whole, verify that it's you kind of thing. And I know for sure that the first 3 questions were right that I answered. And then there was a fourth that was sort of a wild card about like my ex-stepmother. And anyway, I'm pretty sure I got that one right too. But somehow then when they inputted it, it flagged me. And then they said, oh, you know, your account is fraudulent. Like you're not
who you say you are.
Yeah, you're not who you say you are. This is a fraudulent account. Even I have a digital driver's license because I had to get that when I moved back to the United States in 2021. They wouldn't let me get just a plain old driver's license. So I have an electronic digital ID driver's license. So anyway, they said, well, let's call the corporate office. And so we get on the phone and basically they hand the phone over to me, and I'm expecting that they're going to ask me some clarifying questions about your identity to verify that I am who I say I am. And all I got was, you know, okay, what's your name? What's your date of birth? Okay, well, we're not going to be able to process you. Your account has been flagged for fraudulent activity. And I said, well, can you explain, like, don't you want to ask me further clarifying questions about my identity so I can clear that up for you? No, we don't want to do that. And then I said, well, you know, we don't have power and I need this connection because my phone isn't working. We're going through the Hurricane Helene. Completely not helpful, not nice at all whatsoever. And I said, well, can you explain to me what's happened? And they said, well, we're not allowed to give you information about why we came to this decision today. And I said, well, honestly, that's criminal. Like, I don't understand. You're discriminating against me. And I don't understand why. And I said, I know that my credit score is great. I said,
But of course, you did understand why. You just didn't tell them.
Yes, but I have to, you know,
Yeah.
so I was just, you know, firm, very nice. But I was like, this is not right. And I was like, can I please speak with your manager? And I had to like say to the manager, or say to this particular individual, like many times, I would like to speak with your manager, please. And finally, he transferred me over. She was a bit nicer, but she was like, you can try to escalate the situation with at the corporate office of AT&T, and they'll try to look further into the case. But yeah, we don't have to give you the reason. And that's the next step that you can go from there. And I said, okay, well, I'm gonna do that. So long story short, I did get the phone number of one of the representatives at the store, and she told me, like, there were a couple of different people in the store that were very nice, but they said, you know what, this is actually happening quite a bit recently, where customers are being, you know, flagged for like having a fraudulent account, and then there was someone even that came apparently later that afternoon that had an account with AT&T for 20 years. And then she wanted to upgrade her account, and they said, no, you can't, or, like, you've been flagged as a fraudulent account. So there's something going on with that. And I just couldn't help but wonder, you know, is this some of the cracks that are showing about discrimination against people that, you know, don't bow to the wokeism agenda, you know, because it's particularly with me having this digital driver's license, maybe they could have seen like, okay, here's all her data and she's not, you know, believing in all this stuff that we would prefer for her to believe. So we're just going to shut her out and deny her access into the system.
Well, well, we know what it could not be. It couldn't be credit score or let's say traditional credit score.
Yeah, because my credit score is in the 800s. So it's not that. And I also have one of those monitoring things where it tells you if there's any like fraudulent activity on your account. So I monitor that, and it's not that either.
It wouldn't have been hard to confirm your identity at all. So it just seems like that in some instances, you know, again, by itself, it doesn't really mean anything. But when you start putting all of these things together, these events,
right,
equitable. It's
when you've got ESG scores, which is what's governing, you know, it's corporate governance is what we're seeing. And so, you know, they're probably denying people access to certain services, like, and the fact that, you know, they didn't have to give any reason to me at all is just crazy. I'm like, and they were very sympathetic. Like the people at the store, they were like, this is awful. Like, we can see that it's you.
Well, you go there and you just want to change your service over.
Yeah.
You want to move
give them my business
from Verizon to AT&T, and you know we can't let you do that because it seems that you're fraudulent. Meanwhile, well, we got 30 million people coming across the border. let's just pick out one particular town, Springfield, Ohio, for example. Other places in Pennsylvania do this as well, where people that you have no idea who these people are actually, and they're just handed over.
Well, and if I'm a fraudulent account, really, then why not come and send the police and arrest me? Like, the whole thing just doesn't add up. So I just wanted to put that out there, and I wondered if any of you guys have had an experience like that lately.
Yeah, if you have, let us know about it in the comments, or email us and let us know your story, because distributive justice is happening. This article here from October 6th, still no FEMA. This was this is from Newsweek. Okay, let's jump into these. Let's get to these clips or the Twitter stuff, so we can get into that.
All right, I was just showing them some weather modification projects worldwide right now.
Yeah, that's a good website you want to check out if you want to see the history of weather modification. I can explain to you before we jump into these other clips too. The New York Times. I mean, you've seen this everywhere. The New York Times. I guess now it's been about a month ago, maybe a little more, put out this article. To fix climate anxiety, we first have to fix individualism. And climate anxiety? How do you cope? It starts out. I feel the sorrow, the quiet plea for guidance every time someone asks me this question. It's the LA Times, by the way. As an environmental reporter dedicated to helping people make sense of climate change, make sense of it, it gets hot, it gets cold. I know I should have answers, but the truth is, it took me until now to face my own grief. Listen to the appeals to fear. My heart keeps breaking whenever I meet yet another child struggling with asthma. It couldn't be those jabs, could it? It couldn't be the 36 or 72 shot jab schedule that the child has. That couldn't be the reason they have asthma, right? It couldn't be the smog in LA. No, it's the climate, of course. Let's see. I'm still haunted by the thought of a mother having to call each of her daughters to say goodbye as the homes around her cave to fire. But you see, what you don't see the LA Times and this writer doing is showing any particular sympathy for the people in North Carolina mountains, Tennessee, the mountains of Tennessee and Georgia, and in South Carolina, and on up into Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky. No, not a lot of sympathy for those people, because those people apparently, some of the poorest people in the nation, they're privileged. Those are privileged people there. Well, by the way, let me give you a fact. When people start telling you, look at all these climate deaths what was that Guardian article, Summer? It said that climate change disproportionately affects people of color. Mm-hmm. But listen, the facts are, the data and the science is that there has been a 98% decline in climate disaster deaths in the past 100 years. The problem's not getting worse. Okay,
they're priming everybody for, hey, you've got to pay climate reparations to other countries. That's what they're priming everybody for.
Yeah, true. And then you've got this. Listen to this line in the article. This is by Roseanne. My printout didn't work so good, but Rosanna. I think she's, I don't know, I'm sorry, but it's from the LA Times. I couldn't. Says, I find myself questioning, so she's a lady, I find myself questioning whether I could ever justify bringing my own children into this world. Really? So what is this article trying to achieve, Paralyzing, I'll just give you some of the terms. Paralyzing dread, fear that will never go back to normal, a future we were once promised is now gone. What is really the source of that paralyzing dread? Is it really the climate? Is that really what's giving you this paralyzing sense of dread? Or is it something else? Anyway, this LA Times article is really just odd and infuriating. Public-private partnerships. This is the biggest threat right now to the people in the North Carolina mountains, in places like Chimney Rock and Black Mountain and Swannanoa and around Asheville and in Burnsville and up around Banner Elk and Boone, Blowing Rock area, especially because in those areas, in the more populated parts of those areas, they tend to be a little more liberal. Now, people in the outlying area don't so much because they understand, but right now is a time when you will most definitely see a play being made for this land by public-private partnerships. These people they're letting these people suffer, and then the solution, they'll come in later, where wealthy corporations or businessmen will come in and make deals with the local government. We're going to save your town.
Mm-hmm.
That is a public-private partnership. All right, public meaning government, private meaning a capitalistic enterprise. Nothing wrong with capitalism. All right, by the way, let's just make that clear. You'll hear this. It's the heart. It's the human heart that's evil, not the political, not the economic
just
system.
think about it too. It's like sorcery on a grand scale. Like if you can alter the weather such that people will notice, yeah, I don't really recognize these weather patterns, then suddenly people are more inclined to believe possibly in a climate change issue, and then you've convinced them of the solution that you have ready for them.
So public meaning government, private meaning an enterprise of some kind of a for-profit enterprise, and partnership meaning a merger in contract law of these two entities. Any merger between a private corporation and your public government, your local government, is not going to be good for you in the end. Why would elected officials find it so alluring? It's because they get money. They get benefits for doing it. They get benefits for handing you. This is why you have to be involved in your local government. You don't have to run for office, but you got to know what people are doing, and you've got to hold them accountable. The government coffers are operating on debt to accommodate all of the spending they want, but the citizenry is taxed out. You're going to pay for it. You better be involved in knowing what they're doing. Why would businesses find this alluring? Taxpayers are guaranteeing the profits, right? Because your tax dollars are ensuring that the people who come in, the private money that comes in to save your town, no risk. There's no risk because they're going to get that money, they're going to get their investment back out of your taxes. So what are your taxes going to go to then? Not to your town, not to keeping your city up. So your town's going to be owned by some corporation. Meanwhile, government gets the privilege of choosing which businesses get this benefit, thereby tamping down competition and controlling private enterprise. In years past, when government promised a service that government could not provide on its own, such as paving the roads or rebuilding the city, the government would send out a bidding process to hire a service provider to do the work. That is not a public-private partnership. Public-private partnerships create a marriage between government and businesses, creating a dual ownership of the taxpayer-owned asset, such as the roads, for example. Right? A lot of roads are going to need to be rebuilt up there. You're definitely going to be hearing that. Oh, look at this public-private partnership. Look at this cooperation between government and business to rebuild our roads. Those roads won't be public anymore. And the big problem with that is if the asset fails, if it's not the business, the private, the business, the wealthy investor is not going to lose any money. If it doesn't perform up to predictions, the business doesn't pay the loss. You do. You pay the loss. They'll try to convince you that public-private partnerships are business-friendly, that they're capitalistic. They're not. They're not really capitalistic. This is fascism. This is real fascism. This is one of the articles that we found here. That's from a lady who used to write for the Gaston Gazette, which was close to us. The title of this article was Mussolini Loved Public-Private Partnerships. You personally did not volunteer your hard-earned money to risk in these public-private partnership ventures, but you're forced to join a partnership contract. You're forced to bear the risk of some person's investment. That's not free market. That's not capitalism at all. The crux of the fascist movement was something called corporatism. What Mussolini did was co-opt corporations to do the communal government work of society. It didn't end well. Mussolini was brutally hung in the public square eventually. So, you hear that? Kamala Harris, take note. Barack Obama, take note. Democrats, Republicans, anybody involved in local government, take note. Mussolini was hung in the public square for selling the people's lands and assets over to private interests. Obamacare is one giant mega public-private partnership where insurance companies, doctors, and hospitals were forced into a contract with the federal government. In our area, there's a highway called I-77, Interstate 77. A hot lane toll road north of Charlotte is a public-private partnership where all state taxpayers are guaranteeing the profits of a foreign management company. In a lot of cases, you can just bank on it. A lot of the private money that's going to come in to rebuild roads and cities in the mountains is going to be Chinese. They already own a lot of the land. We can't allow this to happen. This is why you have to be involved in your local government. You have to be there to keep them from doing this, because votes still count at the local level. Voices are still heard at the local. The people still have power at the local level. You can't let them get away with it. America's success is in great part due to the free market system. A free market that is being murdered day after day by legislative bodies in D.C. and in Raleigh, if you're in North Carolina, and locally. The international health regulations, for example, and the so-called pandemic treaty. That is Obamacare gone global. So if you're mad at the World Health Organization, if you're mad at the pandemic treaty or the international health regulations, you need to understand that that's coming from inside the people. Who are the people who came up with the idea? Well, they're right here. It's other Americans who are selling you out. The greatest threat to American sovereignty is other Americans. Hear ye, hear ye. You are the government until you're not. So don't let that happen. The American medical system is so overpriced, health insurers, big pharma, actually playing a major role in writing the legislation. The government require that citizens buy your product or else pay large penalties, right? If you choose not to have to buy into the marketplace, you get fined. So anyway, that's just an idea, a little trip into public-private partnerships. I think we'll share some more of this. This probably seems like a topic that we need to get into on our Substack and help people understand a little bit more about what public-private partnerships are and how this is going to play out in the North Carolina mountains and why you've got to get involved at the local level. And right here, some articles, some very excellent research that Summer has done here on our Substack here on ideas like regionalism, for one. And this was back when the pandemic treaty was being
Meryl Nass
debated, right? And we were trying to, and we tweeted at Lisa Logan, we've tweeted at Alex Newman, and their work is excellent, and you should definitely engage with their work.
Yeah, they understand about regionalism.
But all we're trying to say is, yeah, these things, these multilateral organizations, they're a threat to our sovereignty. But we've got to remember that the first threat is idle Americans. The first threat to the church is idle Christians. The first threat to American sovereignty is idle Americans. We can't just sit by and watch it all happen. We can't just sit by and hope that it'll go right. That's not freedom. Freedom is when you go out and you exert your rights and you're willing to accept the consequences. Then you might get thrown in jail for disagreeing. You might get thrown in jail for speaking the truth. But do it, because you're fighting for someone else's right when you do that. This is what the people who founded the country did. They weren't afraid. Truth is not a movement. Patriotism is not a feeling or a pep rally. I'll just share a little bit of this. Jeremiah 5:30-31. An appalling and horrible thing has happened in the land. The prophets prophesy falsely, and the priests rule at their direction. My people love to have it so. But what will you do when the end comes? So we have to stop taking the bait and being mesmerized by the circus of the 24/7 news cycle, the onslaught of fakes, frauds, and grifters in the alt media. Yes, the alt media, who are eager to seduce your support as well. So very quickly, regionalism, this concept of regionalism is often presented as a pragmatic solution to global challenges through cooperation that enhances economic stability and security. That's how they sell it. But regionalization, as it is being implemented by powerful Western interests and the BRICS, we're going to talk about that in just a second. Right, Summer, have you got that piece ready to go? Or do you want to talk? Okay.
Yeah.
So regionalization is the intermediate step between nationalism and globalism. All right? There is no globalism without regionalism first. And regionalism is a step-by-step transfer of rights that starts locally. So who prevents globalism? It's like, who prevents forest fires? Smokey. Remember Smokey?
Smokey the Bear.
Well, who prevents globalism? You. And if you do nothing, well, globalism. That's the result. Because freedom requires free people to act. This video was just
In the year 2015, the world agreed on the ambitious, inclusive, and universal sustainable
No, the world didn't agree on that. These people in this room agreed on it.
development goals, making a commitment to leave no one behind.
It is so. When they say leave no one behind,
that's communist.
All right, that's what that means. Everyone is required, is what it means.
Decided.
Just a few months later, we are already seeing those promises transform into first concrete steps for action.
Okay, anyway, since this has happened, we've seen the Pact for the Future, at the United Nations. I don't know, it's so. Why don't you let us know? Tell us about the what you've got there. This article about the regional syndication. Is that what it's called?
the intelligence age. So
remember now. Let's make this before we jump into this. Remember what regionalism is. It's going to be sold to you like, well, this is not the New World Order, right? We're going to have regions. It'll be multipolar. You see, it's not Yes, it is globalism. It's the step where nation states are broken down, their borders are dissolved, and regionalism is the intermediate step between nationalism and globalism, and it starts locally with public-private partnerships, these non-governmental organizations, super-regional governments, and things like that. So,
these mega regions will be glued together through regional banks, and the coordinating hub of this new global governance system will be the BRICS, not the United Nations. So this is what this author is writing about. And I do happen to be in alignment with so much of what they're saying here. The United Nations will be reduced in power and influence, and other regional groups such as the G20, ASEAN, SCO, and the World Economic Forum's 100 strategic partners will grow in power and influence. The Global South are hungry for equal footing on the world stage. After centuries of Western domination, the WEF is leveraging this hunger to manipulate the Global South leaders into jumping on the billionaires' bandwagon in the false hope that they will be given a greater slice of the global pie. In exchange for forfeiting national sovereignty and sacrificing their own people whose heads were placed on the executioner's block during the pandemic. All right. These regional players are brainwashed, bribed, or blackmailed into cooperating with the WEF project. The WEF gives them power, wealth, and position. The alternative of not cooperating means that they will be excommunicated and exiled from the global stage. sound familiar? So this would happen, if you're running a huge corporation or if you're just like me going into AT&T, right? Their greatest fear is that they will be left behind. This is not something that greedy, power-mad individuals can stomach. The easiest people to manipulate are those who are morally weak, corrupt, and mediocre. The New World Order that Schwab envisions requires middle managers, bureaucrats, and administrators who are consummate yes-men and yes-women. Therefore, what we are witnessing on the world stage is a cult of mediocrity. I'm going to show you a bit of a chart here. Well, first of all, here they are, virtue signaling here with their pyramids. I mean, hello, this just happened like a few weeks back, maybe about 3 weeks back.
It's all mockery at this. It's mockery at this point, isn't it?
In Indonesia, yeah. It's really sad, guys, because it's again, but that's how Marxist communists works. Like Marxist communism works. They promise you the sun, moon, and stars, but really it's just a lure to get you to give over all your resources. And these people are not going to be happy with what transpires in the end. So, the global south will be temporary winners and long-term losers because the bait and switch scam of the WEF will still result in them being controlled by the same American, Israeli, and European billionaires as before.
Now what Summer's describing now, this is the plan for what they call the global south, right? This is how the
BRICS plus block.
Come in with this solution, this regional solution. Same thing is going to be offered to the people in the mountains of North Carolina very soon. You're going to see this same kind, not on this scale, but public-private partnership. It's the same thing we've just described. Okay.
Right. And so, and once the dust settles, they will be disposed of when they are no longer needed, and their nations and economies will be in far worse a position than before, having sold all of their natural resources to multinationals who will exploit them at will. Okay. Mm-hmm. So this is what we've been trying to say about the BRICS. The BRICS is not just some organic movement that's there to fight globalism. The BRICS was created by Jim O'Neill, which is Goldman Sachs, which is, all of these, the Rothschilds, if you will, the same people that have been in power.
Yeah.
For centuries. This is their new sort of HQ, if you will, their multipolar operation. And as I've said time and again, these nations in the BRICS bloc, they're already adopted further along than the Western nations are as far as digitalization into the digital gulag, if you will. So just wanted to bring your awareness around that. And we will drop that article under the video as well after.
Yeah, definitely. That's good stuff. That's so you can see what we're trying to offer you here is a lens for making sense of everything that you're seeing right now. But you can't forget. You must never forget, folks, that none of this is a surprise to the Lord. I mean, this world is rife with moral corruption and malevolence. It seems that the wicked are prospering. It seems that the wicked are prospering in open defiance of God. And so, then when you see this happening, you're tempted to doubt that God is even with us. That would be a very weak theology to hold. God calls us to rejoice, even in our trials. Not because of the troubles themselves, not because of tragedy, but rejoice in our peace, to stand firm in the comfort that we have, the comfort we have in knowing who our God is. Our God is the one who brought the storm. Our God is the one who allows the storm for his purposes. We need to understand the Bible's clear teaching on the role of evil in God's redemptive plan. And it won't be today, but I'm going to share some. I've got a couple other books over there, but we're going to talk about why. Why does God allow evil, right? You're going to hear people challenge your faith by saying, see what happened in the mountains? There's no God. If children can be killed in the flood, there's no God. We'll respond to that for you. We'll help you respond to people who have that, well, frankly, ignorant view of God, of of reality. We rejoice even in the midst of adversity, because we know that our abiding joy, our remaining joy, our ability to stand firm is not rooted in our ability. It's not rooted in our government. It's not rooted in anything but faith and trust in the one who created it all, regardless of the circumstances. And that is how we provide the best testimony to the gospel of Jesus Christ, because it's the Lord who changes hearts ultimately. And he does it through us sometimes. And so our testimony in standing firm, and standing up for truth even when it's risky to do so, these are strong testimonies. And we have an opportunity right now. We've had so many great opportunities since 2020 to really stand up for truth. So who do you trust is the question. Do you believe what God has said? Let's look at some of these Twitter
I was just going to, can I say, before we head into the Twitterville, the Twitterland, this quote really spoke to me. What makes it possible for a totalitarian or any other dictatorship to rule is that people are not informed. How can you have an opinion if you are not informed? If everybody always lies to you, the consequence is not that you believe the lies, but rather that nobody believes anything anymore. And a people that no longer can believe anything cannot make up its mind. It is deprived not only of its capacity to act, but also of its capacity to think and judge. And with such a people, you can get them to do anything that you please. So just to realize that, with the way that they're propagandizing us, they're going to be like hitting us with all of these misinformation stories. A lot of those are going to be coming from the very top down to us, so that we will be in this incapacitated state of just, I don't know. Because, you've got the New York Times literally saying that these things that the people on the ground are just not happening. And it causes people to have cognitive dissonance. And then everybody goes, well, I just can't believe anything anymore. And that's exactly where they want you right now. So to keep that in mind as we head into Twitterville here.
Yeah, those are good points, especially when we see this post here from Nick Sortor. I really hate to have to report this, but again, let's not kill the video here on YouTube. But the self-harm rate in Western North Carolina has skyrocketed in the last 10 days. Well, last 10 or 11 days. I've spoken with officials from multiple counties who've confirmed this to me. People who have lost everything. Right here. Ended up trapped. Had no communication with the outside world, no food or water, and nobody came to help them. It's infuriating. Folks, this is where our opportunity comes in. Right? Are you filled with the Holy Spirit? Are you a follower of Christ? When you hear stories like this, it's like when everything was lost and everything was gone, these people thought they had nothing. And that's because they didn't have the truth. They didn't know Christ. They didn't have it. In our video, I won't play it now. I want you guys to go check out the video and share it. But in this video, there's also the story of this little boy who the mother tells the story of, in his last moments, as she watched him drown. He was calling out to Jesus. Someone had taught him about the truth. Someone had taught him who was in charge. Someone had taught him who would never leave him. And in his moment of clearly horrifying fear, she reports to us that she heard him call out to his Savior. And you can watch the video for yourself and see how it turns out. But this is, when these things happen, it gives us opportunity to be a testimony, to be a living testimony, but it also gives us opportunity to show and share stories like this so that people can see the light, right? Our hearts, men's hearts love darkness. You know, the famous passage, John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whosoever is to believe in him should have everlasting life. But it keeps going after that and said, but this is the judgment. Men's hearts love darkness, and men's hearts love darkness. People, everyone, loves darkness because their deeds are evil. And our deeds are so evil that we don't want people to know our deeds. We don't even want people to know what our thoughts are. So we just practice covering things up and covering it up. We love darkness until we're changed. And this gives us opportunity to highlight light, of what it's like to have a changed heart. So, yeah, this is a tweet from She Van Fleet too. The suppression of free speech during the CCP's anti-rightist campaign. That means,
anybody that doesn't bow the knee.
Right. People that don't bow the knee. The landowners, right? The privileged class, what they would call the black classes in China. The red classes were the good ones. Well, you can see how that turned out for them. Horrible. Benny Johnson here reports Kamala just blamed FEMA's failure on Trump. Yeah, let's listen to this. This is kind of ridiculous too.
Kamala, and
this is how you know that you're dealing with people who have no real relationship with the truth.
Well, it's also an example of the hate craft. So this is asymmetrical warfare, and this is what's being unleashed upon the American people. So you've got media corporations that are funneling this stuff out, and it's propaganda, and it's hate craft, and it's something that Maoist Marxist China used to divide its people so it could divide and conquer.
True. Now remember, there are communists running for president. There are no fascists running for president, but these people happen to be both. But let's listen to this. Sometimes you think about this. It doesn't matter what you think about Donald Trump. We're not telling you who to vote for. We're just telling you to make sure that you do it. Just get out there and engage it locally for sure. Don't let these people take your towns away from you.
Calling you Kamala, because for all of those who are mispronouncing it, I want you all to know how to say it.
All right.
Yeah, we got to clap after that because it's so profound.
Different from Donald Trump. Right now, there is a monster storm barreling towards my state of Florida, a place that's still reeling from Hurricane Helene. Trump is lying, claiming that the Biden administration is intentionally withholding aid from the areas where Republicans live, and that FEMA funds are being redirected to migrants. Ironically, that is something he did in 2019. What do you think the effect of these lies are, and why is he doing this?
Well, it's profound, and it is the height of irresponsibility and, frankly, callousness.
Yeah.
So,
listen for facts. Let's just listen for any facts. He's lying. And now, okay, what's he lying about? Listen for facts.
lives are literally at stake right now. I traveled to Georgia and to North Carolina after Hurricane Helene. In Georgia, I met a woman who, just days earlier, her husband was killed in their home by a fallen tree.
Yeah.
Days later, I met with her and her daughter.
So how?
Where are the facts? Where's the argumentation?
That's the horrible thing that happened. But where's the lie? Where are the lies again?
Can imagine the pain, the shock that they are still in about what they experienced, what they witnessed.
Appeals to emotion.
I mean, we're talking about real human beings and their lives, and them losing everything. Everything. This woman lost her husband. Her child lost her father. Mm-hmm. People are losing their home with no hope.
I got to stop it because this is so ridiculous. Because let me just scroll down here a little bit. Now, we know she just gave, they've been giving billions of dollars to Ukraine, right? Oh, and she cares so much about this person whose husband died. She just cares so much that she's going to give them. Let's just see. Let's let her tell you how much she's going to come help them out. She's going to make, she's going to instill joy in them, that's for sure. Let me see if I can find that one right quick. Yeah, I'm going to make sure that everybody... Oh boy, Summer, here we go again. You know what I'm looking for, right?
The $750.
Yeah, I want. Yeah.
I think everybody's heard about it. Yeah, it's weird. Like we put these in the bookmarks, and then some of them just jump away into the ether. Yeah. They just hop out.
Yeah. So she promised to give people in Augusta, Georgia, too. That's where she went. $750, but you have to apply for it. And
lots of people are getting denied.
Yeah, where is that story you had? I don't know if we can find it, but we read it, where people who are applying for the $750 who are storm victims are being turned down. And why? Why? I wonder why. Equity, right? Because we've got to save this money for whoever they deem to be. Yeah, I can't find it. But anyway, you guys have probably heard this by now. She's promised $750 to people who've been impacted by it. But you got to apply for it, and there's a chance you might just be turned down. Gosh, what's the deal?
I believe it was really at the top of hurricane craze.
Yeah, I'm trying to get there. There's just so many in here. Let's just listen to the few.
Well, we're at the airport today. Yesterday.
By the way, they're saying that it's conspiracy theory. There are no, I see WRAL. I had a clip up yesterday where WRAL was fact checking the claims about FEMA. It's just it's on their website, man. Right? Do you remember that? It's on their website. They're not blocking airstrips. They're not blocking
because
they're not taking supplies.
You wouldn't want to have a third party come in to investigate whether or not that was happening. It should just be enough for FEMA to state on their own website, we're not doing that.
It's enough for mainstream media just to go to FEMA's website and read what they say. We'll see that they tell the truth because they're the government.
They ran 30-something planes, a bunch of trips up to Western North Carolina, Asheville, that whole area, wherever they can land and drop off supplies. And FEMA has flown in 10 or more helicopters and blocked a runway here at Greenville downtown.
No, okay,
completely took over.
So he's either lying or it happened. Something happened, right? So who's lying? Who has more? Who has less credibility now? The average citizen, or the media, or the government?
Or almost took over the operation. Just because they're doing some good here, FEMA's going to come here and try to stop it. And they took over one of the hangars over here too. We'll show you as much as we can. It's absolutely ridiculous. Okay, here's the helicopters.
Right, so there was that one again. Let's see now. Meanwhile, here's what FEMA is doing. Here's who they are helping.
How much is rent here?
Free. 2 years.
After 2 years, we have to pay the rent.
All right, y'all, this is Savannah Hernandez in Brunswick, Maine, reporting to you from the apartments where migrants are getting their rent paid for up to 2 years. Now, I wanted to give you guys a first inside look at these units the migrants shared
that are blocking
with us that they come furnished. So they have a flat screen TV in there, couches, tables and chairs, a bed. We also asked them as well, hey, are you paying utilities here? They shared with us that nope, they do not have a water bill, they do not have an electricity bill.
And what about the light and the water?
Everything is good. We don't pay anything.
Now, I wanted to focus in on this area of Maine because there is a...
All right, so we get the idea there. Growing outrage. Yeah, it's just, there's more and more. We know this by now, right? Can't believe what I saw today. I've been out for 12 hours bringing supplies to people up in the mountains. I was in Yancey County, Mitchell County, Bakersville, Spruce Pine, Burnsville. I kept an old man's generator running for his oxygen. Let's see, I lost my place. And waited with him until his family showed up. I handed out thousands of dollars to people. They have no driveways, no power, no food. People are dying, grown men crying and hugging me for giving them $100. I'm going back out tomorrow to do it all over again. It's making me sick what I saw and heard today. I've also been crying on and off all day. I usually don't get like this. The government is confiscating supplies from scroll down here to this,
one of the
particular tweet so you see who it is. It's this one, AP Hill Legacy Foundation. The government is confiscating supplies from small towns at their drop-off points. That's why I'm bringing everything to the people directly. That's why we're telling you, if you want to help people, find out the most direct way to do it. He says, I met up with a convoy of patriots, and we drove supplies to places people couldn't get to and roads that were closed. I went everywhere with the truck. That they went with their side-by-sides. We met by the grace of God. I've never experienced anything like this in my life. Please donate if you can. I'm draining my own bank account tomorrow to give more money to people, and I'm getting even more supplies. All right, so there are stories like this all over the place. People crying, telling me that they watched a woman and her 3 children be washed away in the flood, and they cried the entire night because they couldn't help them. Yeah, stories like this, one after another. Pilot using his own chopper and money to rescue people, stranded people, is threatened to be placed in jail. Oh, this is a conspiracy theory. It's not really happening.
He abandoned his rescue missions after a fire official threatened to have him thrown in jail. Well, that man now wants answers and turned to Queen City News chief investigator Jody Barr to help figure out what went wrong here.
Let me just, this is, I forgot his name. Anyway, I think it's important to point out, too, though, that there is a reason why you wouldn't want just anyone coming into your area, flying in and doing things. Air traffic is one problem. But, in the early days, in the first few days after this is happening, when it's most critical, there is no excuse for them blocking runways. There's no excuse for them taking supplies away from people in these situations when they have no funds and they said they have no funds and they're not doing anything to help. They're essentially what they've done is they've shown up on the scene to stop the relief.
This is the original post that I was reading when I decided to go up and help. It's a long post, but she's saying that her kids and family and animals are trapped. No way out, no supplies, and the only way in or out is accessible by helicopter. Limited self-service and no water since Friday morning. I thought I have a helicopter and maybe I can help.
Jordan Sidham piled food and water into his helicopter Saturday and headed up toward Banner Elk, the only way through a mountain gap in Lake Lure.
This is the mountain valley that you would have to fly to get to Black Mountain, where we were escorting people out. This is a mountain range, and this is a mountain range. The only place to fly through with bad visibility, low cloud coverage, is Lake Lure.
The cries for help from people stranded without food, water, or electricity hit social media soon after the flooding last Friday.
But my parents are stuck there. Their address is Banner Elk. They are in the first condo. If you receive this, please give me a call back. Thank you.
Sidham's phone started lighting up on Saturday with people begging for help.
I could hear the desperation in her voice. This is multiple phone calls I've received like this, voicemails, text messages, and you could hear people desperate for help.
Sidham and his son rescued 4 people on Saturday and spent the night in a nearby pilot's lounge, then decided to fly again Sunday morning.
I spoke with my son, which is my co-pilot. I said, hey, do you want to go back out and try to help today? And his response was, there's so many messages, I don't think we can't not go help.
Sidham and his son were headed up to Black Mountain. Flight tracking shows no flight restrictions in place Saturday or Sunday morning when Sidham flew through the Lake Lure Gap. But that was all about to change. The Sidham spotted an older couple waving for help, then landed in what's left of their driveway.
Hey, I want you to let me get in. You step out and go out, help her in, put her bag in the back, get her strapped in. I'm going to take her down, come back. I'll take him, I'll come back, and then I'll get you, okay?
I originally left my son, co-pilot, on the side of the mountain. It was kind of unstable, so I didn't want to put more weight in the helicopter to lift back off. So I left my son with the other victim, and I was just going to take one person down at the time. And you could hear me in the video talking through with the victims and with my son what we're going to do.
3 minutes away, Sidham spotted a group of rescuers just down the river. He landed and found someone in charge.
Told him my background experience, law enforcement, firefighting, pilot, he immediately started helping with coordination. He gave me radio frequencies to coordinate with them on, set up a landing area for me to come back with the other victim. And in the middle of the whole conversation and then blocking the road off, I was greeted by the, at that time I didn't know, but Lake Lure fire chief or assistant chief maybe, and he shut down the whole operation. So at that point I felt like the conversation wasn't going any further, and again he asked me to leave, and I said, hey, I have no problem getting out of your area. If that's what you want us to do, we'll leave, no issue. At that point I asked him, what was the reason I had to leave them there, and he said, again, you're interfering with my operation. I just need you to get out of the area. I said, sir, I don't know where you were trained at, but I know how my training is, and I'm not going to leave personnel behind. I'm going back to get my co-pilot. He said, if you turn around and go back up the mountain, you're going to be arrested. I said, well, sir, I'm going back to get my co-pilot.
So he did. Long story short there, he did go back to get his son, and some of the other guys who were there secured a landing spot for him, and they did get the man out too. So, but, and this wasn't FEMA, this was local. This was local government doing this. Again, this is why you have to be involved with your local officials. Now, he could have had a very good reason for shutting that down there, but I think maybe the better response to this gentleman would have been, hey, okay, I see you've got some skills. Let me just check your background right quick, and if all this checks out, then would you be willing to work with us? Don't. I'm going to arrest you if you don't get out of here. This is why you got to be.
Yeah, or like, oh, I know that your phone's not working and you can't send messages to and fro and your power's down, but we're still going to deny you service, even though we're not going to give you an answer why.
Anytime.
That's communism. This is the system that we're living in right now.
Anytime Summer and I were separated during after the within a day or so after the storm, we had no way to communicate with each other really, because it was. Because of the Verizon. My service seemed to be pretty good. In fact, we were able to even get some broadband, some internet here and there, but Verizon was completely down. So if we were separated for any reason, it was just no communication. Here's another Americans. It says, hiking to bypass FEMA and get to others in need. Doesn't get more American than this, they say. For some reason they're playing Johnny Cash there, but anyway. Here's a post from some group called Armor of Truth. Who's that? You know anything about those people? Look at those yahoos from up in the mountains. Is that who that is?
They're scandalous.
It's a pretty shocking tweet here. It says, do not donate to the Red Cross or FEMA. I mean, that's pretty bold. They might get in trouble for that. Find a local place to donate for the hurricane. Yeah, so that's pretty good. That's a tweet from Summer there, and that's exactly right. And here's this report here. There are reports that Mission Hospital in Asheville, North Carolina, this report's been going on. They're going to be designated as the official collection spot, the morgue for the recovery. This might end up kind of like 9/11. It was expected that any moment now after 9/11, all of these bodies and these injured people and bodies are going to be showing up, and we're going to have to deal with them, and there really never was. There were some, but because so many people were just pulverized in the collapse. The collapse of the tower, that was obviously caused by the heat of the jet fuel, all that.
Yeah, it burned.
Well, anyway.
From the plane.
Exactly. Harley Davidson.
The plane.
So, and then sadly, in this case, it's going to be the same. There's just not going to be much to recover, I'm afraid, from some of these people. You heard Christy explaining that earlier.
Well, the other issue is the IV bags now. So they're claiming, whether it's true or not, that there's IV, like saline solution and things that are needed for kidney dialysis and stuff. Now suddenly there's a nationwide shortage. Yeah, that's because in Marion, North Carolina is one of the main producers of IV bags with things like with saline solutions and things like that. Which is another round of getting rid of people. Yeah, it makes it tough. Because people that are in critical condition that need these fluids are not going to be able to gain access to surgeries and these fluids, and that's serious. Sorry about that.
there's nothing here.
We're 8 days, 9 days post-hurricane, and that was the first FEMA drop I've seen here in the Swannanoa area. I haven't seen a FEMA agent yet. This is all local volunteers from abroad, as far as Washington State, are coming out here.
You know what the first thing you can do to get prepared? You might not have extra money to go prep and do all these things, buy all this food. The first thing you should do is just find out who your neighbor is. Do you know their name even? I mean, there's a lot of people, and look, where we live right now, we're guilty of this too, because we happen to live in a place but we have to change the way we live. We can't live side by side with people and not know them and know them well, and then have something coordinated with them for if something goes down, where we're looking out for each other. This is why people get caught off guard and bad things happen. That's just one thing you can do. It doesn't cost a dime. It's just get to know the people who live around you. Make plans together.
To help and pick up the slack that's been left behind from our government.
You know, and President Trump, he's not even in office, but yet he's still getting a Starlink. He's doing his best. He's shaking all the trees.
If we're talking about federal assistance, I didn't see my first FEMA truck until, what is today, Saturday? I didn't see my first FEMA truck until Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening. And all I saw was a FEMA truck with a satellite on it, parked in a corner underneath some shade trees in the parking lot with no signage, no information.
Yeah, it seems to be.
Carolina, you deserve to hear this. I'm a truck driver, all right? I have a 53-foot step deck. I've been trucking for about 2.5 years. I have a YouTube channel. You can verify that on Babyline Hotshot. Usually in a disaster situation, it is payday for truckers. We look for that hurricane. We look for that ice storm. There's generators coming to you. There's stuff coming out of military bases. There is excavators, skid steers, bulldozers, tree trimming equipment, pumps, like water pumps to pump water out of places that have been flooded. There's no loads on the load board coming to you within 125 miles of Asheville. It's called Truck Stop. This is where I find all my loads. Chicago, Illinois, up at the top. Within 250 miles of Chicago is where I'm gonna pick up. The second is the destination. So it goes origin, destination, watch. See, drop-off location. Let's do city, North Carolina. Click it, boom. All right. These are all $1.40 a mile loads, $1.39. That was posted yesterday. I mean, there's nothing. There's nothing. These are loads that you wouldn't even, nobody's taking them. They're just on the load board. They've been on there since yesterday. You can see, right? Let's type in a different city. That's from Chicago. Maybe Tennessee, maybe Nashville is closer, and they'd send resources from Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville, Tennessee, within 250 miles of Nashville, to Asheville, North Carolina, within 125 miles. Let's see, that's it. That's all the loads. That's all the loads that are.
All right, so there's a truck driver. Let me share this with you here. I think this is the video we found yesterday. You might find this interesting. WRAL. They're gonna break it down for you.
The Federal Emergency Management Agency is warning North Carolinians about misinformation
By the way, look at their source. Their source is PolitiFact.
Circulating on social media. Paul Spey is here now to check a claim about donations to people affected by Helene for PolitiFact.
CommiFact.
What happens when volunteers bring food or water or other resources to storm victims in North Carolina? Well, the host of a conservative internet show said FEMA is halting relief flights and confiscating supplies.
Now, okay, this is supposed to be a news report. Just look at the contempt. He says there. These are
halting.
Well,
I love it. Halting.
Right. This is one of those conservative podcasters, and we clearly know that they're all lying because they're just they're privileged.
Fomenting the hate, to dehumanize people, to get them ready to be genocided.
I'm afraid this guy's pants are a little too tight in the crotch.
That's what it says down there. Is this right? No. FEMA addressed this rumor on its webpage, the one it created that's completely dedicated to stamping out social.
Oh, so let's go to FEMA's website. That's where we can find out the truth about
that'll
FEMA.
have unbiased facts,
Right,
man.
these are all false. Okay, well, there we go. There's nothing to worry about. And look at his sincerity.
The believe me look.
Oh, it's all false. Oh, okay, well, these people are just lying over here, right? They're not telling the truth. Right.
So I just left the airport. We picked up...
Okay, this is about the hospital still, and these guys...
There's nothing here.
We're the first ones, or the only other people that have helped us is another private, citizens that are just basically our neighbors or our friends trying to help us. They hadn't seen anyone from the federal government yet.
When our vice president talks on the...
Let's see, let me check this out. I'll go ahead and look here. The reports coming from victims and volunteers on the ground that FEMA is blocking aid is not hyperbole. This is what they don't want you to see. This person says, I'll explain. And he goes on to explain what we've just explained. It's equity. In 2023, FEMA released a document titled Equity, and we've already shown you this at the top of the show with that gentleman who explained all of this.
Yeah, I've got that video posted underneath the video already.
All right, good.
So you guys can check out that video that is about explaining about disasters.
Be careful where you post that one. That video will get you in trouble.
Making. And so absolutely. And so we have to address this in a way that is about giving resources based on equity.
Giving resources based on equity, not based on need. But on that, who had more before the storm?
Right, and by the way, it's stealing resources.
Right.
Yes. Lowest income communities and our communities of color that are most impacted by these extreme conditions and impacted by issues that are not of their own making. And
this is just flat out racism, and she's just so proud to announce it.
So absolutely. And so we have to address this.
Tell me, what did the people in the North Carolina mountains, the Western NC, there's a difference. They're going to just make something. What did they do? What did they do? She said, well, these people have suffered, and it's not of their making. What about the poor white people in the mountains? Did they do something to deserve this? It's silly. This is silly. By the way, if you hear on the news, Western North Carolina, that's really, that would be considered like an Asheville, would be Western North Carolina. But the high country, it would be closer to where we are. The high country would be Blowing Rock, Boone, Banner Elk. We're closer to where the skiing is. But this is crazy.
In a way that is about giving resources based on equity, understanding that we fight for equality, but we also need to fight for equity, understanding not everyone starts out at the same place. And if we want people to be in an equal place, sometimes we have to take into account those disparities.
So you know what that means. That, again, as we said right at the top of the show, is what we call distributive justice. It's just another way of explaining discrimination. In order to make things evil. How about that Freudian slip? In order to make things equal and evil, we have to...
In order to make things evil...
Right, we have to make sure that we can't respond with all of the resources that we might, because you guys who were affected, you're considered the enemy class. Goal 1 of FEMA's report, using equity to define the agenda. The document determines who is underserved. Goal 8 explains why FEMA is attempting to consolidate all resources so they can be in charge of how... Look, I've had enough. Let's see. Where's that report? I've lost it. We've got to jump back in on this guy, let him finish his explaining to us. Let him finish news-splaining for us. Gosh, I've lost it completely. What is my deal here? Well, I completely lost it. I wanted to go back to our guy at WRAL who's going to explain it for us once again about how we got it all wrong. Fact check. Here we go. Let's go back to the fact checker. I don't know. Maybe maybe that should be the thumbnail for the video right there, especially with his, with that pose. He said, "Please, folks, you have to understand these claims are all false. It's all false. Don't you understand? These are conservatives and they all lie."
Social media rumors. FEMA officials also pointed out they're not typically the ones handing out these materials on the ground. In North Carolina, FEMA delivered supplies to Raleigh, and then other groups, such as the state's National Guard, actually fly them out to the people in need.
Well, then what do we need FEMA for in the first place?
Still, officials on the ground are having to deal with all these rumors. Here's
gosh.
Tennessee's Republican Governor Bill Lee and what he said when asked about the rumors the other day.
Can you speak to that? Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's totally inaccurate. There's no confiscation of supplies or of products coming in by FEMA or TEMA.
Okay, now you see, this is another example of just like what happened with they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. What this does is it diverts attention away from the big problem, right? Okay, I'm willing to concede to you that FEMA's probably, maybe they're not showing up and stealing the stuff, but they're certainly not responding, and they're not bringing help. They're not doing what their commission states that they should be doing. Right now, they're funding migrants and setting them up all over the nation and not responding to the needs of American citizens. So, again, remember, to focus on whether or not Haitians are eating the dogs and cats distracts away from the point that 20,000 of them moved in there, and they're a strain on the resources. To make the issue, for him to respond to, look, it's just not true that they're going in there and stealing all the relief. Well, okay. Are they blocking runways? Are they even responding at all? All right, so you can see how this works. I think we're getting a little long here, Summer. So do we have any? I've got a little something to finish up with. Is there anything that you wanted to?
Can you please read that open letter to the Sheepdogs?
Oh, yeah, that's how we're going to finish up.
Yeah.
I'm not going to forget that piece. So
Let's go into that one.
Let's finish that up. So let me just remind you, I hit on this a moment ago, and let's make sure that we have our links, our two important links that we have for people who want to donate somewhere directly that we personally vetted. Winkler's Grove Baptist Church, which is near our area. It's also right beside the Hickory Regional Airport, which are flying missions. You might have heard the chopper go over. It's a couple times during this show. And Operation Airdrop, and we'll make sure those links, by the way, you want to make sure that you check out our video, how to donate direct relief. Thumbnail looks like.
Years would imagine that.
Well, let's see if I can get right there. That's it right there. Donate direct. Okay. Now, sheepdogs. What's a sheepdog? Well, a sheepdog is it could be a police officer, a firefighter, could be a National Guard, someone former military. In fact, a sheepdog is, well, it's any man who is an American, okay? Just following orders, that is the indefensible safe space of the morally emasculated. This is Bill Stebbins, veteran and a patriot. He wrote this, did you say back in March or something?
Mm-hmm. May. I believe it was May.
Now remember, evil plays a role in God's plan. God is not the author of evil, but when men do evil, it always works out for the good of God's people ultimately, and by that we mean in eternity. So let me skip ahead here. I'm going to read this letter from this open letter from Bill Stebbins. I'm going to read the whole thing, and that's how we're going to finish up. I guess this show's going a little bit long today, isn't it? Where are we now? We're 2.5 hours. Well,
that's all right. We haven't been on for a while.
Yeah, so we'll just get it all out today, and I think this is something you might enjoy if you want to end this show on maybe an inspiring note. And for you men out there, and for you ladies who are involved in our listen. women who are, I have respect for women who are police officers and who are part of front lines operations, inside the country like that. I don't know. That's good. When I say men, I'm one, so I'm trying to speak to them. So a woman, a mother, a wife who is providing for her home and is playing just as important a role in most cases, an even more important role, than being out on the front lines. This whole idea of equality. Everyone doesn't have to be on the front lines. Someone has to play a support role or everyone dies. But let's talk about this idea of just following orders for a minute, because there's a lot of FEMA officials who are going to be saying, I'm just following orders, doing what I'm told. Well, evil thrives when sheepdogs cower. A recurring historical tragedy that those who should be sheepdogs of society, local sheriffs, police, military, too frequently sacrifice their morality upon the altar of the state. They drop to their knees before petty tyrants and turn their weapons on their own people. Are we seeing it? Those who should be society's sheepdogs degenerate into mangy hyenas, subduing and terrorizing the very people they've sworn to serve. Our existential struggle is now. As 2024 proceeds, we're well within the gaping jaws of an existential struggle for our constitutional republic. Marxist jackals, eager to throw the last spadeful of earth on our Constitution's grave, need the military. They need the police. They need all of the three-lettered agencies to finish their soft coup. For all their plotting, bribing, blackmailing, and extorting, they nevertheless cannot succeed without widespread sheepdog submission. That includes all of you, remember? All of you. The first line to protecting American sovereignty is Americans, just like you. You, the sheepdogs, are the critical capability without which they fail. When tyrants and oppressive cabals spawn, they need the cooperation of society's guardians. Historically, they intimidate and co-opt existing security forces, raise their own thuggish enforcers, or both. Oppressors always need to gain a monopoly on violence in order to establish and retain power. In Nazi Germany, for example, the police and military betrayed their own people by securing a dictator. Their treason began with small moral compromises, self-rationalizing, herd mentality, ripened with self-protection and obsession, and finally rotted to the point of facilitating outright genocide and territorial conquest. Their moral compromise led to the destruction of their country. Hitler had his brown shirt stormtroopers, his Gestapo, his SS. Stalin had his secret police, his KGB. Mao had his Red Guards and his People's Armed Police. That's just a few. There are many others. The British Crown, for example, encouraged the East India Company to raise a private army to brutally enforce its colonial interests. Tragically, our nation has similarly devolved into an extra-constitutional global corporation ruled by kleptocrats. And that root word, klepto, there means thief, whose interests are martially enforced. This uneasy reality is largely ignored because generations of military sheepdogs have been indoctrinated to reject so-called isolationism, the idea that we're an exceptional nation. What's wrong with that, if we happen to be? And instead, they embrace the enlightened security position that forward deployment of an ever-growing military-industrial machine animated by a policy of preemption and a supposed responsibility to protect are essential to national security. Will this co-option of our security institutions continue like spreading gangrene? Will American police, county sheriffs, border patrols, security agencies, and the military eventually stand in fraternity alongside despised villains of history? Well, they're already doing it, aren't they, in some cases? In our current situation, cartels, invaders, and slavery. Domestically, our constitutional protections are being cast into the globalist commode. While our economy and our domestic security deteriorates, our homeland is under cartel-facilitated, politically incentivized invasion. As a steady stream of defenseless children are trafficked and lethal fentanyl, essentially, a chemical weapon of mass destruction, floods into our nation. Learning nothing from shameful aspects of our earlier history, contemporary slavery flourishes under active political patronage and security force compliance, unwittingly channeling the spirits of historical Nazi demons. They hide behind the hollow defense of just following orders. I have kids to feed too. I'm just following orders. Turning a blind eye is facilitation. Following immoral orders never stands as a just defense in the end. Your nation depends on you, the sheepdogs of America, law enforcement and military, to deeply reflect upon and renew your oaths to brush up on American history, to resolve to be courageously faithful to the nation's founding ideas, to be zealous in protecting our citizenry instead of serving avaricious political thugs who embrace destructive foreign ideologies. Your nation depends on you to snatch the wolves from among the flock. Don't roll over and submissively spread your legs in humiliation before them. Time is short. Prepare now. You have little time to consider these things. If you don't reflect now, then when the storm personally hits you and you're standing at the point of decision, even though you'd like to think you'd do the right thing, chances are, as the weight of history says, you'll probably cave in and comply. You'll probably prostitute your position and power in the enablement of evil masquerading as authority. Because courageous decisions require advanced preparation, prior reflection on what is just, what is right, what's moral, what is actually constitutional, then followed by a solemn commitment to stand for those ideals no matter what. You must determine in advance how and upon what grounds you'll decline immoral orders, how you'll take a stand for truth and decency even in the face of opposition. Sheepdogs do not cower before wolves. Don't confuse legality with morality. That something is legal doesn't imply that it's immoral. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you ought to, and therefore to be unquestionably enforced. Much immoral legislation has existed for a long time until being overturned. It's possible to turn things back. The Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. Morality always trumps legality. Blind eyes are traitors. If you turn a blind eye to injustice, panicked to selfishly save your own skin and that of your family, your memory, your epitaph will read that in your greatest moment of decision, when your nation needed you, when the people around you needed you, you caved. You actually condemned your family to a future of empowered evil. You saved no one. If you see immoral activities occurring, especially under the umbrella of wicked policies and laws, human trafficking, border invasion, corruption, political persecution, election fraud, if you see that and you turn a blind eye, don't rationalize. You're just powerless. Those of you who think you might stay out of the election if my vote doesn't count, don't rationalize that you're powerless. You've been taught to think that you're powerless. You're not a powerless bystander unable to effect change. Rather, by complying with evil, you become a facilitating hyena, a traitor to your family and nation. And while it may seem easier in the moment to simply comply with the evil, just to go along to get along, the psychological and spiritual harm will badger you to your grave. You're not judged on whether you can personally cause the hurricane to redirect. Rather, you're judged for your individual actions within the hurricane, regardless of the results. It's not interesting that he wrote this months before what we're dealing with now. Just following orders is the pathetic safe space of the morally emasculated. Uncritically following orders is neither a badge of honor nor a proof of being apolitical. Just following orders never grants future immunity. It simply identifies spineless cowards with calloused kneecaps. For the sake of your family and how they remember you, commit now to know what you're about, to strengthen your backbone and soul, and be that sheepdog that protects the American flock in the face of emboldened evil. That's where we are. Don't be that remorseful jackal who comes to realize too late that he cowered in fear, betrayed his nation, his family, and self, committed or enabled shameful, unspeakable acts that in more carefree years over casual conversation, he would have loudly condemned. It's really easy to condemn evil when you're not faced with it. This is an appeal to rebellion, vigilantism. Make sure this is not an appeal to rebellion. This is not an appeal to vigilantism. This is not an appeal to insurrection. This is an appeal to everyone with institutional violence potential. Every deputy, every sheriff, every officer, every soldier, and every agent, and I'm going to add that also includes all of you out there who are American citizens who have the right to bear arms. This is an appeal for all of us to critically evaluate the morality and constitutionality of orders, policies, and directives, and to refuse to carry out those which fall short of that standard. Be a moral guardian of the Constitution, not a thuggish enforcer of tyranny. We stand at a historical crossroads. Do not fail our republic. That's what's at stake. If you don't see it now, it's because you're not paying attention or because your head's in the sand. Now is the time for men of firm and stern constitution to step forward. There are many there. I just for some reason thought of Nick Freitas. Look him up on YouTube. He went and became a member of his state legislature, state government in Virginia. Nick Freitas. He's on Twitter. He's got a big following, and he deserves it. He's a good guy. People like him, those are good examples. There are many other good examples out there. If you know of some, share them with us, because we need to highlight these people out there who are doing the right thing, who are not falling in line behind evil, who are not just sitting it out and hoping it all gets better. Anything?
No,
Sorry.
You've got me silenced. No, thank you for reading that. That's really been in my heart to share with you guys since I found that article. So that's the spirit in which I'm operating, and I know Brad is operating, and of course with God guiding every step of the way and always submitting to God's will and understanding that in all of this craziness, there is a plan and that the battle has been won, and to just be encouraged out there, because even though things are really, really hard, it's true that when Brad and I went out and did the interviews and met with people, it was wild. We felt like the hand of God on it, and because we weren't going to turn a certain direction, and then we ended up going in a certain direction, and then we found where there was a church where they were doing a drop zone, and then we happened to talk with them, and then we happened to run into a person that we could interview there, and the gentleman Rob, I don't know if you wanted to play his interview. Maybe we'll change that. We'll play it on another time.
Yeah, he's in the video too, but we have some more comments from him.
Yeah,
that we could play later too. Yeah.
So it is amazing, when you go out there and you want to stay in God's will and be helpful and do what you can, how the Lord will just open the doors and show you that He's right there with you. helping to guide you.
It's true.
It's amazing.
It's true. You don't have to be afraid. You don't have to fear. When you take one step toward the Lord and toward His will, He'll carry you the rest of the way. It'll all become clear. You won't feel confused. Our God is not the God of, He is not the author of confusion. That's the other one. That's Satan. Our God is I think it said one time, God, not the God of the closed fist, but the God of the open hand. And He's there waiting for, it's not talking about salvation here. That's a different kind of conversation. Right now we're talking about sanctification and our acts, our good works as Christians. If you're confused about what to do, that's something that we want to do here, is to try to clarify what is the right thing to do in this or that situation. Not that we're the experts, because we're certainly not, but we're thinking through this just as it happens, just like you are too. And we pray that we can help you out, right? Because it really doesn't matter who the president ends up being, right? Christ is king. He'll always be king. He's always in charge. Our God is sovereign, and nothing is going to happen here that hasn't been decreed before the foundation of the earth.
Amen.
All right. God bless you, my friends. We hope to see you here again very soon.
God bless you.
The hammer comes down and beats you over the head for the rest of your life with a big national security stick. And so that people learn to duck their head and not speak up, because bad idea now.
This is the emergency broadcast system. This is not a test. Repeat, this is not a test. Citizens are advised to take the following steps.
Find us, armoroftruth.net.
In the age of technocracy, scientism, and pop atheism,
faith is resistance.
Nietzsche, of course, announced the death of God and called for the birth of the Übermensch, the Superman, who would take humanity to new heights, to create a new world order.
Find us at the Armor of Truth YouTube channel.
This is not a test. Repeat, this is not a test.